Hello, you all, and welcome. Thank you so much for being here. Good afternoon, good evening, or even good morning if you are in Asia or Australia or New Zealand or somewhere in that region of the world. Thanks so much for joining us. And if you are joining us after the event, I super appreciate you being here as well. I think we're going to have a lively time in store. So if you are joining us, feel free to let us know that you're here. Say hi, hello, let me know where you're from, and I'll come and say a hello in just a few moments. I wanted to start by talking about the title theme for this live stream, which is no more ghosting and breadcrumbing. Find your guy. And I want to say a few things about this, right? So I know that for a lot of you, ghosting and breadcrumbing has been an extreme point of pain, right? And for those of you that aren't familiar with the terms, ghosting is when someone drops contact abruptly and doesn't come back into contact for a long period of time, if ever. And breadcrumbing is sort of the sense that you're getting breadcrumbs from someone, from a guy in this instance, where they're not really giving much to the connection. They're pretty sporadic in their contact. And that may also go in cahoots with this, which is what we call drop-off guy, where you've had the experience that the connection was much more frequent, much more regular, and it's kind of dropped off, right? Whereas you used to perhaps be in touch several times a week. Now you maybe don't hear from him from 2 or 3 weeks, right? And if you've been following my work at all, and this is going to be my encouragement to you again today, is that you need to take a tough line on this stuff. You need to learn how to go no contact when this happens. And you need to not be in the expectation that it should be any different. Right? You can spend a lot of time and energy trying to reform ghosters and breadcrumbers. And I would much rather you were in the business of majoring in what matters and focusing on what it is that you actually want, right? That there's a real power to keeping our hearts, minds, and souls focused on, oh, if I actually want a substantive connection with a guy, that's what I'm going to put my attention on. And anything that's not that, I'm just going to kind of let it go. I don't need to be the one providing the commentary about how bad guys are or how bad breadcrumbing guys are. Even if it's been painful, I want you to take that pain and that anger and move it in the direction of your goal and the thing that you want, right? It's very hard to persuade someone not to be a breadcrumber. Like, that's not the business that you or I want to be in, right? We want to be in the business of being able to discern and notice, here is someone that is showing up for a connection. And that's something that we can build on, and who knows where that goes, right? There's no guarantees of saying that a good connection is necessarily going to work out into a long-term relationship or you guys can figure it out. It's saying that you've got so much more opportunity when you can both get on the board and play together, right? Some of you know I'm a little bit of a chess geek at times, and if you want to play chess, we've got to get on the board and play, right? Even if it's difficult to play, if we're never on the board together, then kind of what are we doing, right? And Mr. Breadcrumb and Mr. Ghoster are basically cameos in your story. They're sidelines in your narrative. They are bit players, and you want a full player. And you don't get that by trying to persuade someone or waiting around, or maybe he'll come back. A lot of that is to do with attachment bonding, where it hasn't actually made sense for you to build a bond, right? That you've been trying to attach to someone who's not available for you, and that equals pain, right? And if you had that experience, I know it can be really hard, and maybe there's even ways I don't know that for you it's been really hard. What I do know is that there are better opportunities out there when you start to take seriously who you are, your own value, and what it is that you want. Right? It's just like, we go out in the world today, there's all sorts of things that you and I just have to be with reality, right? There's viruses, we know about that. There's bacteria, there's brutality, we know a lot about that in this time. We also know that there's criminals. There are so many things that you and I just have to get with the program that's part of reality. The question is, why would you put your focus there versus focusing on, here's what I want to manifest in my own life? And I often say to people, don't be a sociologist. Leave the analysis of the gross generalizations of what's happening in the relationship world. Leave that to the sociologists. For you, you just need to focus on one and finding a guy that can be a one for you rather than a zero, right? In simple speak, anything that is not a one is a zero, right? Let's just keep it binary and simple. 0 or 1. Does he want to show up or not? And if that's not true, then that's your chance to actually acknowledge it, be with reality, and move on. And there's a lot of freedom in that. All right, so I'm going to say a few hellos here. Thank you so much for joining us. I appreciate it. We've got some of you on Facebook and some of you on YouTube, so that's really cool. Welcome, Nadia. Welcome, Sally, Diana, Linda, Kimberly, Gosia, Manda, Cloda, Kimberly, Rhonda, Rebecca, Mrs. Love Luli, I think I've said that right, Janet, Hermione, Gina, Heather. Perfect. I appreciate that. I know a lot of you are tuning in right now from Europe, and I know it's super late there. It's like 10, maybe even 11 o'clock for some of you. So thanks for doing that. And also some of you have gotten up early, so I appreciate that as well. Greetings to Christina, Alma, Nicole. All right. Sorry if I didn't get to say hello to you. Let's see if we've got any questions that are coming in here. And good luck with that. Gina says, when no contact last week and no expectation, he's detached and working himself and self-isolates, and that is no excuse. Not my guy. Got it. Excellent. Well, for those of you that want any help with this, I'm just going to chuck this up on the screen here. becomingtheone.us/guy-checklist. And I'll see if I can put that into the comments as well. That is my best resource for helping you in a very quick way figure out if someone that you are in connection with is someone that's actually got some ability to show up for the connection. So check that out. It's just 9 simple points. You can just run it through. It'll take you literally 15 minutes. I think it will be some of the best investment of 15 minutes of your time. Hey, if you just joined us, welcome. I'm Jack Butler. I'm live here on Facebook and YouTube. We are talking about breadcrumbing, ghosting, and relationships more generally. Come and say hi. Let me know that you're here. Let me know where you're from. And I'm taking questions, so feel free to bring a question. Welcome to Manda, Janice, and Ina, and Lisa. Ziona's in South Africa. Welcome. Thank you, Jack. You're an amazing coach. Greetings from New Jersey. Appreciate that. Thanks for being here. Hi to Vahana, Kristen, Lisa, Luella, more guys joining from the UK. Appreciate that. UK, Scotland, and Aberdeen. Question. Hi, Jack. I am trauma bonded to such a guy and just keep falling back for him, even though I know about that. Do you have any suggestions what I can do to get finally out of that? Yeah, that can be really difficult, right? So firstly, just acknowledging that, I think that, while what I say to you may be simple, it's not necessarily easy. And part of your development may be learning how to detach from something like this. So all of that is just to say, kind of take it seriously, right? In the sense, if you and I were about to embark on learning Mandarin and we'd never learned a language like that before, or even if we had, we're gonna take some time and we're gonna take some energy to learn that. Right? And a similar thing, if you want to learn how to let go of someone, and letting go is hard for you, right? And maybe you tend to have attachment that it's hard for you to let go. And so partly what you're cultivating at a spiritual level is non-attachment, then, cut yourself some slack, give yourself some permission. I am a fan in these instances of 100% no contact, because I've coached a bunch in this area. And the observation that I have is that quite often when people say, I'm having a hard time letting go of a guy, when we dig into the detail, they're still in touch with him. And that's making it a lot harder, right? And it's sporadic contact. I don't hear from him, but then he calls me out of the blue, or he hits me up when he misses me, or he's following me on Facebook or Instagram or Strava, or you fill in the dots. That makes it so much harder. So I'm curious if you've actually tried to go kind of proper full blood, no contact, unfollow, unfriend. I don't even know if you're trying to get hold of me. I may have blocked your number, so I'm not even aware if you're trying to text or call me. And normally the reason that people do that is some belief about that sounds unkind, right? And actually, this may be an opportunity to redefine what authentic boundaries look like for you, right? If I'm actually not available to be in a relationship with you because that's not in my best interest or your best interest, it's not necessarily kind that I just take your call occasionally, right? And it's not very kind from his side if he knows that you're trying to let him go, that he just kind of hits you up when he feels lonely or misses the connection, right? So there may be a little bit of a redefinition here, or sometimes behind the banner of I don't want to be unkind, I'm allowing myself to stay attached to something. And so there may also be a deeper narrative going on there. So those would be my starter thoughts. Feel free to come back with another question if there's more to come. All right. I also want to invite you guys into something. If you haven't had the opportunity to join us, I want to invite you into the Becoming the One program. This is a program I've been running for the last 3 years with my teaching partner that many of you know, Clayton Olson. It's called Becoming the One. It's a really powerful curriculum to help you be more of your true self in relationship and look at some of the patterns that may have been holding you back. Historically, it's a minimum of $497, sometimes as much as $997 to get in the program. And because it's been COVID and lockdown, we're actually doing a trial that we've never done before. It's just a $1 trial to get access to the first 14 days of the program, which gives you access to 2 modules, including my favorite module called Waking Up, Module 2. You get access to a bonus interview. You get access to an ebook that Clayton and I co-wrote called The 4 Pillars of Conscious Relationship. You basically get a ton of stuff, and you get to decide if you want to stay in the program or not thereafter. You can just email and cancel anytime. So if you haven't done that, I want to invite you to do it. It's great. We've got a really vibrant community of people, and we also go live exclusively in our Facebook community every other week. So instead of being maybe like, we've got 150 of us here at the moment, there's maybe like 20 or 25 of us, and it's much easier to give you individualized coaching and attention. So if you haven't tried that yet, becomingtheone.us/$, I'm putting it in the chat. Come and let us know if, actually, you know what? I'm putting it in the chat. I'm not actually putting it in the right place. You're not seeing that. Come on, Jack. Let's get with it. Here we go. All right. Back to some questions here. And by the way, if you've given us a question, thank you. I super appreciate it. I'll get to as many of these as I can. There's a certain amount of scrolling skills to keep on top of this stuff. All right. So what do we got? Poppy says, hi, Jack. How do I get over my available guy? It's been a year since I've seen him and still miss him. Yeah. Yeah, it seems like that's a common theme that's coming in today. So I'm curious again, just to make it crystal clear, if when you say you haven't seen him, if that's actually a full no contact process that you guys have been in, and one way you've made clear that that's what your intention is. I'm also curious if you've been dating, right? Because sometimes just kind of fully getting out there is the antidote, right? We don't want to get into a sort of a rebound relationship necessarily, but sometimes we just need to go and kind of clear the pipes out and kind of notice that there are other people, other fish in the sea, so to speak. The other thing is that sometimes we're in love with the idea of being in love, right? So there's sort of a fantasy that is attached to an ex, where it's like, well, maybe something could have happened that didn't. There's sort of a little bit of false hope, as I would call it, that still keeps the connection alive, because you wonder, oh, maybe if I hadn't said this, maybe I hadn't done that. So I'm curious if any of that sort of noise or narratives going on. Sometimes we just need to drop all of the narratives and be directly as possible with the experience of feeling and sensing what's actually going on. Have you set aside time for grief? Have you worked with anyone? Have you worked with a therapist or a coach? Anyone to just specifically help you let this go? And sometimes you actually have to put aside specific time, right? Like, that's what I'm doing this evening, is I'm doing some grief work. And I'm doing work on letting go. And I'm going to write some things on paper, and then I'm going to scrump it up and I'm going to throw it in the fire, right? Or I'm going to go down to the water and I'm going to write something on a stone, or I'm just going to put an intention in the stone and I'm going to throw it into the water. And you might have to do whatever works for you as some kind of grief ritual. Sometimes people get in drumming circles, or they use intense, vibration music to move things through their body, right? Because sometimes the emotion's stuck in your body. So pragmatically, it's finding one of those techniques that works for you, and let it have its own time, right? Let it have its own time. Don't have a sense like this should be done by now. Do the work on your side of the fence. If there's things that you're holding on to keep hold of the feeling, or maybe you're keeping photos or experiences that you did together kind of front of mind, I would encourage you to let that stuff go and let the past be the past as best you can. This might be, to put it in another context, your great practice of presence, right? This, if we look at it from a bigger soul level, like, what are you here to learn in this life? It might be that you're here to learn how to let go, right? And grieve. And that perhaps sometimes you artificially keep certain things alive, or you keep running certain thoughts or fantasies or what could have beens, and this is actually going to sober you up, and it's going to be difficult. This is profound stuff probably, but the freedom that life might be pointing you to through this might be exquisite. Right? So don't lose faith. There might be something in this that's exactly what you need to come to terms with. So good luck with it. Heather, how do you date someone who had recently been out of a relationship with a woman was the dominant, to now me who does not want to be the dominant? Interesting. Well, I would just encourage you to keep being your authentic self and showing up in the energy that you want to show up. And if eventually you notice that, hey, there's not the right kind of energy coming towards me, or that he's never able to occupy his masculine more fully, it might be that he's not your guy, right? One of the things, if you guys download the He's Your Guy checklist, I talk about to what extent is your guy in his essence, is he in his essential energy, And for most men, that is their masculine essence. Not all men and not all women have a feminine essence, obviously. And there's plenty of, spectrum there. But if he doesn't really have access to that energy at all, and that doesn't work for you, I think that might be a good piece of information to pay attention to. Or it might be there's some masculine development that's going to happen over there where he's available for something more in the future that he isn't available for now. And that still might be the answer. Yeah, this isn't the right connection for me now. It may be that he has some wounding from this previous relationship, right? We all probably have some wounding at some level from previous relationships. That might be his to figure out. I wouldn't try and get too into the role of coach or healer or any of that stuff unconsciously with him. And I'd probably be willing to be in an authentic conversation with him about it. Like, what's the impact of this? What is it that you're wanting? How can you bring that sensitively into his world? Because there might be good mileage there for both of you, right? It might be that he needs more time to heal from that previous connection, in which case he's not actually going to be available for something super full with you. So you may want to take your time as well. Thanks for the question. All right. Let's scroll down. Thanks so much for all these questions. Hello, DP. Welcome. I'm having some of these. I felt like when I look down this list, right, we've got Muppet Puppet, we've got Jazz and Justice. I feel like I should change my YouTube name. Maybe I'm being a bit boring just putting my name here. All right, I'm fearful of my future as new social norms mean continued remote working. I work a demanding job with long hours and live on my own. Since lockdown, the only way I can meet a new man is via apps. Yeah, thanks for naming that. I'm sure that that's a super common experience and fear that a lot of people with us right now are going through. Yeah, so one thing just about apps, right? Because I often get asked this question, like, what's your favorite dating app, right? And my usual reply to that is actually, it's that dating not through dating apps, but using other apps that are based around the things that you like, based around your real interests. So if you want to multiply the amount of people that you can be in contact with, I would also look beyond the dating apps and go after the places that you have passions, interests, and hobbies. I don't know where you live. I don't know where it's like in your world. I just actually went for a hike here. So I'm in Colorado, and everyone was saying hello, right? And I do have a habit when I hike, I kind of whistle a lot. So I think it makes me quite obvious to people, and I think they find it somewhat endearing, if not annoying at times. But I just noticed, like, I'd look over and people were kind of waving or saying hi. So I'm putting that out there because if you can be the first to say hello, if you can be open to receiving a hello or just connecting, there will probably be opportunities to meet people that may not be available. Like, basically your energy, your vibration is important into this equation. And I'm noticing things opening up here faster than I felt comfortable with. Lots of people, on sunny evenings, kind of out in the bars, spilling out onto the streets. So I think there's going to be some elements of normalcy that are also returning. So I would just say kind of hang in there. Time may be on your side and headed into the right direction. And I also know some people who've decided, I have one person in one of my live programs right now who's like, yeah, I decided to start a virtual speed dating event because I wanted to meet more people, right? So there may also be opportunities that if you're not meeting people, like, could you host something? Could you invite something? Could you put something together? So yeah, I hear the problem though, and keep at it. All right. If you just joined us, hey, we've got Linda here from Australia. Thanks. I'm appreciating people from all different time zones joining us here. I appreciate this. I'm putting myself out of a job here. Hi, Jack, I've watched enough of your videos to already know the answer to my own issue. Not even going to bother asking. I actually really love that. That's great. That's actually quite fulfilling for me to hear that. So thanks for sharing that. Lisa says, if we are in a relationship and he backs off, how long should I wait to contact him? I'm from Omaha, Nebraska. Yeah, so I'm curious, when you say we're in a relationship, just what the contours of that are. Like, are you in a mutually agreed relationship? That's kind of what we're doing. Is it that we had some connection and now he's kind of downshifted? There are a few options here, right? So one is you actually do nothing and you just wait and you notice. And if he literally isn't coming back, then you kind of have your answer to some extent, even if that's painful, right? Sometimes people use humor in these situations and sort of say, hey, just kind of checking you haven't dropped off the earth, or, hey, let me know if you've lost your phone or you've lost your voice box, or something that's just, it's kind of playful and light, but it's just sort of acknowledging, hey, I haven't really heard from you, kind of where you at, right? And that can sometimes help us not get too kind of heavy in the situation. Or you could also just put a very clear communication saying, hey, I've noticed you've been in touch less recently. I'd love to clarify what we're doing here. Would you be open to having a call with me? Right? So that we don't have to pretend, we can just both orient to what is here and clarify where we're at. Right? And if that drop off has been long enough, he may just be disqualifying himself anyway. He may, we often say this, right? Actions speak louder than words. So he may, through his actions, be clarifying what his actual intentions are for the connection and the relationship. So I don't think there's so much of a wait 1 day, 3 day, 5 day, 7 day. I think it's more like notice your authentic desire, notice what's a real communication for you, notice what's right timing for you. And I wouldn't be afraid of that conversation, right? If you have that conversation and he's not willing to be in it with you, or you didn't quite approach it in the right way, it's like, if something's actually going to have legs, it's got to have the robustness to be able to be in a conversation like that, even if it's difficult. So, there's no perfect way of doing these things. It's like, best is done, expressions like that. It's like, it's better to just get this done rather than you have to do it exquisitely or in a particular way. All right. Oh, I can only see my eyes now. It's kind of fun. All right, I'm going to read this. What about a guy who seems emotionally available, is very consistent, present, really wanting a relationship, but is all in with I love yous and everything so quickly, like within less than a month? I want a committed real relationship, but I want him to get to know me more first, and I want time to get to know him. I voiced this to him as a sign that this could be an unhealthy attachment, or could this work? I want what he is offering, but not so quickly. Not sure if there was another half to that, but I'm just going to stop there. Yes, so this is a really common experience from the shares that I've gotten in this community, right? So there's a guy who's suddenly like, I want you, and it can almost be impersonal because it's so quick. He hasn't actually had the time to get to know you. So I definitely would pay attention there. I think that's interesting information. What we want to avoid, I think, is the guy where you're the solution to his problem, right? Where he hasn't necessarily got his own kind of life going together. And so suddenly it's like, it's all about the relationship, right? And it's all about you, right? Sometimes we call that mergy guy, or you're the solution to my problem guy. And that doesn't tend to work out in my experience, right? Because at a certain point, you're sort of like, whoa, I need a little bit of space. I need a little bit of reality. I'm not actually trusting your merginess. And I don't trust that you've actually got your kind of integrity in your own life and the things that, are going for you in terms of your mission or your career or your ability to provide. So yeah, that's not the best pattern that I see, right? Sometimes it can be that a guy knows really quickly, right? He just knows, and that can be the case. I'd say more often than that is a guy thinks he knows, and then he sobers up after a while, and then you get into some relationship difficulty because he can't actually stand behind the big claims, the big promises, the I'm all in love with you, rhetoric. So yeah, feel free to slow it down. I often say this, right? The right guy doesn't become the wrong guy because you slowed it down, right? So if he can't be with that slowing down, that's kind of in his lane. Like, he can figure that out, right? So maybe you actually see him a little bit less, or maybe you just dial the intensity down in certain ways, and see what happens. Mostly this sort of pattern burns fast and bright. So if you can get through like the 3 to 6 month mark, it's harder for people to keep that up, right? Often within 1 to 3 months, they'll kind of start to sober up a little bit, or you'll start to get more information about who they are and the rest of their lives. So yeah, I wouldn't be afraid of slowing that down. And if you need to bring the sobriety and you need to bring the edge to the conversations, bring it. That's great. That's almost, a healthy edge of development for you, I'm sure. So yeah, trust your intuition. I think that's what's talking to you a little bit. And if he's going to be the right guy, he can prove that 3 months, 6 months out, right? We don't need to have an answer to that question today. Welcome. Hello from London. Good vibes. I appreciate that. Hello from Tennessee. Wendy, welcome from Canada. All right, Zona says, my boyfriend left me a month ago out of nowhere. I was involved in an accident that essentially had me looking like a burn victim. And according to what I put together from what he said, is that I'm not perfect enough and not his idea of his perfect woman weight-wise either. I'm not even big at all. We have a business together and now I've put him in a box. So what do I do not to fall for this again? My self-esteem is shot. So if you haven't watched it, I do have a video on this, and the thumbnail words are "Start Valuing Yourself," and it got really good feedback. It was released, I believe, last summer, August 19. So check that out. That would be a great place to start. So this could be an opportunity for wakefulness, right? Because of course we all like it when people love us, appreciate us, and reflect the best in us, right? And some of us need that more than others. And there's a sort of freedom that arrives from my view of me doesn't depend on your view of me, right? And the extreme position of that is your view of me is your business. And so I'm going to stay out of your business, right? Now, obviously, we're going to care about how our partners or potential partners think about us, right? So, it's a partial truth what I'm saying, but the more you can lean into that, in intimate relationship or otherwise, co-workers, friends, people you went to college with, people you went to school with, the more you can get to the stance of you are entitled to your view of me. Of course, I prefer it when you appreciate me and think well of me. I'm human. And I'm going to practice that edge. So I'm less dependent, right? Otherwise, it's like I'm a stock price. Oh, you like me. I feel good. Oh, you don't like me. I don't feel good. Oh, you still like me. And it's kind of like this volatility that is not conducive to just being in your wholeness and in your essence. So this could be your call to that wakefulness, right? Even though it's come through this, perhaps nasty words or his kind of criticisms. And I think you're going to find a guy for who those things just aren't an issue, right? They're actually like, he just loves you exactly how you are, that your body is exactly right for him, right? I trust that guy's out there. But it may be inviting you to practice one of the things that we talk about a lot in this community, this kind of 80-20 principle of I'm going to keep more of the attention, 80% of the attention over here on my side of the fence, so that I'm actually with me and I'm not so much over there with other people. And if you start doing this, it will feel weird, right? Because it's countercultural. But if you're a little bit leaned in, right, it's inviting you to sort of find your proper weight, so to speak, your proper stance, where you're not too over there with other people. You're actually, I can be over here with me as well as being over there with you. But most of us need to practice more being over here with me, right? The other thing is there are plenty of guys that, of course, appreciate physical beauty, and there's just so much depth as well in how they look at life and how they look at a relationship, right? So it may be that this guy is superficial, and he can have a right to his superficiality, and it might be that you want someone that's a little bit more connected, right? A little bit more dropped into their heart, a little bit more deep when it comes to their view and perspective on life. And it might also be that as you step into new relationships, that there's more clarification of what we call B's and V's, right? Beliefs and values. That maybe there's someone that's a little bit more values aligned with you, right? Who's more into, I'm going to appreciate you as you are, right? Rather than, I don't know, hold you up to some kind of standard of how I need you to look, or like I'm going to tell you you're not the right weight. It's like, yeah, plenty of guys who are that's just not even part of the view of how they're orienting to reality. So I think it also could be a good filter for you, right? Like there might be a little bit of a superficiality filter that you're also being invited to step over. One of the cool things about wanting to practice on your self-esteem is that when you have low self-esteem, the practice is getting higher self-esteem, right? Like believing in myself, feeling more secure in myself. From a spiritual perspective, one of the best ways to do that is presence, right? The more actually present I am to myself, my body, my senses, and my feelings in this moment, the more wholeness I'll experience in myself, right? And I'll be present to the fact, oh, I'm upset right now. Oh, I'm feeling insecure right now. But rather than push it away or avoid it, I can befriend it, right? I can be with it. I'm going to grow my tolerance with what I can be with in life. So again, this can be a great opportunity for you. And the more you practice that, the more it will be okay when other people, perhaps from their own limitations, their own projections and reactions, kind of put stuff on you, right? There's like fewer places for it to kind of take hold. And here's the cool thing. Once you practice that a little bit, eventually you might also want to get into the game of, what we call non-contingent value, right? So rather than I've got this stock price on my self-esteem, it's kind of like, yeah, my value isn't really up for grabs, right? Like my value's not up for grabs. It's like, it is, right? Like, that's why I don't have notes on me, but sometimes I hold up this like £20 or $20 note and scrunch it all up and then open up and say, how much is this worth, right? It's still worth £20. Doesn't matter if it's got a tear on the corner. Doesn't matter if I've scrunched it up a million times. It's still £20. It's still got that value. Life can hit you and knock you down again and again and again and again. And you can get up and notice, yeah, I'm still here. I'm still intact. I'm still me, right? So there's sort of this thing of, I'm not locating my value so much over there in other people's eyes, how they look at me. I kind of know it. It's more intrinsic. It's more innate to me, right? You know, does a oak tree have to justify its value all the time? No, it's an oak tree, right? And we might look at it and say, well, its value is because we can cut it down and turn it into paper. And what a lot of us are waking up to is the value of the oak tree intrinsically has nothing to do with its utility that we can use it for, right? It has its own inherent value. It's an oak tree. You're a person, you're a beautiful being, you're embodied, you're incarnated. Life chose you to be here. Let's appreciate and acknowledge that. Let's own your uniqueness and kind of, I don't care if someone else doesn't see that, right? If you don't see my uniqueness, that's on you. Shame on you. You know, it's like your loss, my beauty, right? So it's a bit of a different frame on the whole thing. All right, thanks for indulging me there. Kind of went for that one a little bit. Thank you for the question. Merrill Hafe to New Jersey. Okay. How can you tell a guy is using you for your money? Yeah, so I would trust your intuition again on this, right? If a guy is asking you to pay for things early on in the connection, why him money, short him because he hasn't got his job sorted, you know, and I know these might be difficult times, but that's not really the behavior that we would expect in the early stages of dating, right? So any of that stuff I think can be a bit of a red flag. And, you know, also it might be that if you are sort of, let's say you've got your financial house in order, that you actually want to be in relationship with a guy that's the same, right? Not necessarily that he has to be wealthy or that he's got a really high income, but just he's on it, right? Whether he makes, you know, $50 a year or $50 million a year, that he's actually paying attention to what's happening with his finances. For most women, particularly if they have a more feminine essence, that's going to be important to them, right? It doesn't mean that they're gold digging. It just means, is he paying attention? Because paying attention to what's happening financially is also a proxy for presence, attention, here-ness, right? Stability, which are all aspects of relationship that you probably want. So if you don't get that sense with a guy, that you kind of wouldn't trust him to have access to your bank account, probably not your guy, right? How are you going to relax into him? How are you going to trust him? How are you going to trust him sometimes to make good decisions for the relationship or take some direction or some initiative in the relationship? So yeah, I would trust your intuition there, and I wouldn't be giving anyone money if I've got any of that kind of background noise going on. I'm wondering if you accept insurance for your services. I do not. Thanks for asking. Gina, that's why I went no contact, because when I stopped talking to him, he would send me a breadcrumb text to pull me back in when he felt like it. I told him to come to me right or not at all. Yeah, beautiful. I like that. You know, 0-1. Let's get the clarity. Catherine, thanks, Jack, for sharing all your inputs, yeses, and truths. The hardest spot for me is knowing what I want. Yeah, that can be hard. So I used to have more of an issue with this, knowing what I wanted. And so I ended up recording a voice note to myself, basically with a sort of mantra saying, what do you want? And also with this kind of mantra, I want what I want. I know what I want. I want what I want. I know what I want. And just kind of indoctrinating myself a little bit. So I don't know if you've tried anything like that. You can do that in your journal, right? You can just every day have a question, what do I want? And just take 5 minutes and just notice what you want. Even if what you want is super, super simple. I want to move, right? I want to move my body. I want to get some rest. I want some chocolate. I want to eat. I want to hear from my friends. I want to have more time in my life. You know, it doesn't have to be like very specific, amazing wants. It can just be, you know, super like get in touch with your animal body. What does your animal body want, right? Does it want to move? Does it want to excrete? Does it want to rest? Does it want to eat? Does it want to have sex, right? Let's just kind of get down to some of the basics of it. It's much easier once you get in touch with some of your animal or personality desires to then get in touch with that energy, to be more in touch with like, oh, what's my authentic heart's desire? You know, what's my soul desire? But that takes practice. It's kind of like building a muscle. The other thing you can do is notice if there are certain people around whom it's easier for you to know what you want, right? Perhaps they have an empathic quality, or they have a good listening quality, or they have a curiosity that they put on you. Spend more time with those people, right? They can help you get in touch with what you want. Go pay a coach for a little bit to help you get clear on what you want. I mean, it's like the more aspects you have in your life, put some VCRs, visual constant reminders. What do I want? Let's have that on the mirror, the dashboard, the fridge, as you walk out of your door, as you close your door to your bedroom at night. Let's have that all reminding you of this question, this constant inquiry of your life. What do I want? What do I want? The more you do that, the more you'll be turned on to it, right? Because it's a really powerful thing to be connected with. What do I want? Even in some situations, notice, oh, I'm losing touch with what I want, so I'm going to 80-20. Going to disconnect my energy from over there, bring it back over here. What do I want? Maybe what I want right now is for them to stop talking. Okay, that's what I want. Maybe what I want right now is I want to go and get a cappuccino. Maybe what I want is I don't even know what I want, but at least I'm present in this moment to my lack of clarity about what I want. And if you haven't, I would encourage you to check out the Enneagram, and I would look at point 9. Point 9 is the part in all of us that is disengaged, and disengaged when we're more in our personality than in our essence, as we call it. So when I'm more stuck in my patterns, I'm disengaged from what I want, and I go with the flow, and I go with other people's agendas. And if I have a partner, I tend to merge with them. So if any of that's true, check out Enneagram point 9. It doesn't matter whether that's your actual type on the Enneagram. For all of us, that's the education about staying in touch with what we call PPO, preferences, priorities, and opinions. What do I prefer? What are my priorities? And what do I think about this? If you ever find yourself around, oh, other people seem to have all these strong opinions, right? Maybe your opinions aren't as strong as them. Maybe you have more nuance. Maybe you have more ability to see multiple perspectives. So your opinions aren't going to be, yeah, damn, 100% this is the right thing or the wrong thing. You can still get in touch with that, right? Maybe you can factor 3 different things into opinion that someone else would just have a singular view. That's beautiful. Let's have that. So let's get you in touch with what you want. If you notice someone else is talking and you actually want to butt in and say, hey, I have a view on this and it's different with yours. Would you mind if I shared it? Get used to practicing that, because it will just keep building that muscle. All right. My boyfriend says he has no time for a relationship, but I'm his girlfriend. We don't talk all week. He ignores me because of work. Got it. Yes. So he might not be your guy, right? It might be that at this stage, he's not available to extend more care and concern into the relationship. And that might just be what you're dealing with. And that might be really hard to learn if that's true. Ideally, we don't want to make him wrong for that. We just want to be with what is and notice, oh, if this guy isn't actually available for that, maybe that's not a great choice for me right now. Or maybe there's another season where if I let this go, maybe there's something more that can be available, right? A few things to check off for yourself. Are you filling your other love buckets, right? Are you filling the bucket of friendship? Are you filling the bucket of having things to look after, plants, pets, an elderly aunt, whoever it is? Are you filling your self-love bucket, right? So if those buckets are more full, sometimes we're less needing of a certain aspect of attention from our partner or boyfriend. But if those things you're paying attention to, it might not be that this is quite the right fit for you, and that's maybe okay. Like, we have different communication needs, right? Some people are fine if they don't hear from a guy for a bit because they actually really like their space. Some people, they really need to hear from him every day, otherwise that's difficult for them. So, you get your choice, right? And that can sound very ominous, but it's also very empowering. Like, you have your choice. Either you're a yes to this or you're not. And maybe it's time to really get clear in yourself where you stand, right? And you might have to take the actions to see that through. All right, I am back to the scroll. If you've just joined us, welcome. We are live here. I'm taking questions. We've got a really cool group of people here. I super appreciate these questions. Thanks so much. If you haven't, take a moment, like this video. And if you haven't subscribed to my YouTube channel, I'm going to put that link in here as well. If you're watching on YouTube, you can just hit the subscribe button. It should be on the video or beneath the video. Otherwise, you can go to bit.ly/Jack Butler subscribe if you're watching on Facebook or some other platform right now, and you can subscribe to the channel. Get your question in. I will be here and try and answer as many of these as I can. I see that 21 of you have liked the video. Super appreciate that. Thank you. It helps get the word out. All right, I'm going to get back into a question, but just before I do, I'm also going to invite you, if you haven't joined us yet, think about coming and joining us in the Becoming the One program. We have a $1 trial going on at the moment, which is something that we've never done before. Normally it costs at least $497 or more to get into the program, sometimes as much as $997. Because of lockdown, economic situations, we have decided to open this up for a 14-day $1 trial, becomingtheone.us/dollar. I'm putting it into the comments, and I'll also throw it back up on the screen. It's a really great program. I'm totally biased at one level, right? But I also have a reputation for having a bit more objectivity than some people in this space. And I would take this just as the amount you're going to get. You're going to get many hours of videos. You're going to get some free bonuses. You're going to have the opportunity to come be at an exclusive private Facebook Live with me, which is going to be next Friday at 12 p.m. Pacific time. You can get individualized questions and coaching, more than I can offer here, obviously. So I would love for you to come and be part of that. Check it out, becomingtheone.us/dollar. I will look forward to seeing some of you there. Okay, let's get back into a question. This is from Luella. What's the best way to forgive? I want to move forwards without staying attached to my husband who left last year for another woman after 12 years of marriage. I'm sorry to hear that. Do I need to do it openly or just myself? Okay, so where I would start with this is actually with your authentic experience, by which I mean, what is your authentic emotional experience? What are you actually feeling? Because for most of us, true forgiveness is on the other side of getting out the other feelings, right? So if you are carrying any anger, which I can imagine you rightfully would, resentment, jealousy, you fill in the dots, that stuff needs to be metabolized before you might get to a place where actually in right timing, you're like, yeah, I'm actually ready to forgive, right? So I'm basically saying, let's not prematurely forgive in a way that lacks substance. Let's take the time to cycle through the disappointment, the anger, right? Sometimes on the other side of anger is going to be sadness and grief. And let's feel those things. Put aside specific time, get support, have a coach or therapist hold you in that space, do a grief ritual or an anger ritual with a friend, kind of get that stuff out however you need to. And then I would look towards forgiveness. And with forgiveness, it may be that there's something you want to communicate to him, right, succinctly, like, yep, this really hurt me. I was really angry. I'm also ready to forgive you, and I wish you well in your life. It might also be that you don't need to say that to him, right? And you just offer that as your prayer into the universe, or you say it to a friend, or you say it to yourself. I don't think there's necessarily a right and a wrong with that. I'm curious if he's still going to be in your life. I don't know if you have any children or anything together that's going to keep you more connected that way. I would want to know what's true for you, right? And it doesn't need to all happen at once. It might be what's true right now is we get the other feelings out. Then what maybe becomes true is I can offer it as a prayer to myself and say it to a friend. Maybe in the fullness of the time I get to say it to them. But I would take your time with it so that you actually do it properly in service of being able to move on. All right. Here we go. How can you tell the difference between an avoidant and an overly anxious attached who is reciprocating? My ex keeps coming back, but again, he's not ready for a relationship. Is he just not into me? Yeah. So, these words, he's not ready for a relationship, I think are really important just to land in the reality of that, right? Because we can spend so much time and energy trying to figure things out when someone's actually not available for a relationship. And they're not available for a relationship at one level. What are we engaging for, right? If we want to be in a relationship or some kind of partnership. So obviously, for those of you that are not familiar with attachment, right, we're talking about attachment theory here. We're talking about the avoidant attachment style, and we're talking about the anxious attachment style. You may know that there's two types of avoidant attachment style. There's dismissive avoidance, right, and there's fearful avoidance. Dismissive avoidant is more like, yep, I don't really need this. So when we come back into contact, I tend to be more dismissive of my orientation. Fearful avoidant is I like that you're back, but it's not able to regulate me usually. So I'm curious whether we need an attachment analysis, I guess is where I'm going with this, based upon readiness for relationship, right? Because it's really hard. If we hold that the thing we're aiming for in attachment is to get to more secure attachment, it's hard to have secure attachment with someone that doesn't want a relationship, right? So if if you're just not sure whether he's into you or he's ready for a relationship, I would just have a brutally honest conversation and say, hey, find your words, but some version of, I would love for you to tell me the truth, right? I'm an adult. I can hear it. Do you actually want to be in a relationship, right? Are you actually into this enough? Because I have reason to believe that you're not, and maybe share why you're drawing that conclusion. And I would listen not just to the words, I would listen to the actions over time. And I also listen to your own intuition, because those things tend to be super powerful. Poppy, I've tried dating, but I'm just not interested. So much time spent journaling, letting go, listening to Jack Butler. Hey, thanks. I hope that's been useful. Rebecca says, hi, been friends online with a guy for a year, had some meetups organized, obviously rescheduled now. We get along really well, but live far apart. We're just friends, but I'm not sure how to keep myself grounded when we do meet, as I really value our friendship. Yeah, so I'm curious about this, right? It can be really hard to be in a friendship orientation to someone that you want more with, right? Where it's sort of like the actual truth for me on my side of the fence is, I don't just want to be in a friendship with you. And there's all sorts of dynamics that then can kind of rise from that kind of unconsciously, because I'm going to take things more personally than I would. I'm probably curious if you ever want more. I'm not sure where we stand. And it might be that this is just a totally genuine friendship. That's all it is. But usually people don't bring me that friendship, right? If it's just, yeah, I'm a friend, he's a friend, we know that's what it is, we'd never want more. But usually if it's been brought up, it's because there actually is a little potential for more. And I would be wary of it staying in the friend zone too long, right? Because it will cheat you usually of that kind of real connection, intimate connection with someone else. And I've also seen these things that go along in friendship for months and years, and I've had it for coaching clients decades. And then eventually when we get to the real conversation that we probably could have had at the 6 or more even prior months mark, I actually find out, oh, you haven't been thinking of me that way. And there's a whole load of like stuff that's in the background that hasn't been foregrounded. So sorry if I'm projecting on this and I'm kind of getting it wrong, but that's the pattern that I've mostly seen in this territory. And, how do you keep yourself grounded when you meet? I mean, just bear in mind, if I'm picking this up right, sorry if I'm not, that you have feelings, just realize it's difficult to have feelings for someone and to kind of be in the friend zone for a year or more. So, also just kind of cut yourself some slack there. And if I were coaching with you, I would probably be encouraging you to get into the real authentic conversation about what is actually here, what are you feeling, and being able to do it where you invite the truth and you can hear it, even if it's difficult to hear. Because here's the thing that I've seen, when these sort of connections get to the clarity, and let's say that they don't actually move forward because there's not a mutual desire for a relationship, when that happens, you don't have to roll the clock that much more forward in time, and that person is kind of like a cameo into your life, because when you have a real connection with someone, you don't tend to care so much about whether you keep this guy as a friend or not. You may want to be friendly, but they're not going to be in your life probably in the same way. Most of us, when we really find someone we want to be in a relationship with, this sort of question marks, the has-beens, it's really important that this person remains a friend. It's like that space is now being occupied more fully by someone else. So that's also the opportunity cost of this, is that you miss out on the opportunity for a real substantive connection with someone that actually wants to be in a relationship with you. All right. I'm going to have to speed up here because I'm a little behind the questions. So this is why I'm going to start talking fast. I know that this is difficult for some of you when I start talking a bit faster, because particularly maybe if English isn't your native language, or you think this guy's a bit crazy and amped up. I did not take any coffee. This is just me trying to get to as many questions as I can. Hannah says, hi, Jack. I got divorced last year. I spent some time doing the work on myself and now feel ready to open my heart again. Awesome. I've never used internet dating, as was with my ex-husband for 15 years. Got it. I'm finding it very difficult and strange. Any tips to help? Yeah, well, the first one is just to say you're not alone. A lot of people find internet dating strange, confusing, and a difficult space to be in. So just notice that. I definitely encourage you, as I was saying earlier, not sure if you're with us, to look at places that aren't dating apps, right? So if you're into cooking, find a baking app. If you're into hiking, use the Strava app. If you're into singing, use the karaoke app or the Smule app. Like, find ways to be around people that share your interests. If you're into meditation, get the Insight Timer app. Notice who's uploading their own meditations that you're drawn to, and maybe just like them, or maybe just leave a comment. And then sometimes you can start to get into conversations. The other thing I'd say about online dating is get to real time as quickly as you can, right? So a lot of people have this frustration where they find pen pals, right? Guys that just want to text them back and forth. And normally that's when a guy is looking for connection but isn't available for relationship, right? Most guys, nearly most all guys at all stages of masculine development, they want connection. So yeah, they want a pen pal. They want someone, like they're lonely. It's 10 p.m. Maybe they're horny. They want someone to reach out to. If that's not the game that you want to be in, you're looking for something more real, I would say, hey, I'd love to jump on a call after you've had a little bit of back and forth, or I'd love to, ideally go on a date, but I'm realizing that's not completely possible in lockdown and all these situations. But you get to some kind of real conversation, and that tends to filter out a lot of guys. It's the wheat from the chaff. And I'm not making a guy wrong for being a pen pal, because some women want pen pal. That's fine. But let's have pen pals be with pen pallers, and let's have people that want relationship be with people that want relationship, right? So that's another thing you can do. You can just be kind of clear with your energy. And I'd also use it as a practice to try and be real and authentic in your boundaries, right? Notice, are you drawn to this conversation? Don't just be polite because you want to be polite. Notice, is there engagement here? Feel free to be a little bit ruthless with that. If I'm not really feeling it, I don't need to have to continue this conversation, right? Just, there's a lot of energy that can go into stuff because people sort of are being nice, like I'm being a nice girl. And it's like, yeah, dating isn't just being a nice girl. Dating's about being real. And when you find someone that you're actually interested in, then you mobilize, and that's where you want to put more of your attention. Be as unattached as you can, right? The dating is a little bit Wild West, right? We're talking about breadcrumbing and ghosting. All that stuff is happening. It's a bit different, the world now, than it probably was 15, 20 years ago. There are some different norms out there, and there are still plenty of guys who are looking for someone that they want to settle down with, right? And that's what you want to stay focused on. There's all sorts of other guys you're going to encounter on dating apps, right? You're going to encounter hookup guy, you're going to encounter pen pal guy, you're going to encounter drop-off guy, mergy guy, you're the solution to my problem guy. I never have any intention to take you on a date guy. They're all there, but you just need to stay focused and zeroed in on what it is that you are actually looking for. All right, I don't know how you pronounce your name. Is it Bruja? Hey, Jack, how do I break it off with my guy who hasn't texted me in 5 days? Well, depending on how long you guys have been together, right, you might want to do something in real time, and I would keep it as succinct as possible, right? So I'd put it into guy speak. Hey, this isn't working for me. It doesn't work for me to not have the level of contact or to have the level of contact that we currently have. And so I'm actually not interested in pursuing this anymore romantically. And I request that you don't contact me, and I won't be in contact with you. And that could have a period attached to it or not, but it's kind of just making it really clear. There's something very powerful about speaking it into the space, because otherwise this kind of guy tends to come back around and you haven't really clarified where you stand with him, right? So again, done is better than perfect. Right? You don't have to do this with the perfect message. I think it's respectful to do it in real time, right? So give them a call or have a Zoom meeting or get together outside or whatever you need to do. Talk it through, but get to the point and keep it as succinct as you can. And good luck with it. You'll probably be better off in a connection that's more meaningful to you. Loretta says, I have no contact from my narcissist husband. How do I break the trauma bond? My heart is broken. He is a monster. Got it. Well, sorry you're having that experience. I think there's layers to that, right? So I think one is that you have some kind of physical separation, right? And probably at some point you also may want to involve yourself in this no contact, right? I realize that's difficult if you've got other, kids or property or other things that you need to kind of sort out. But I think taking proper physical space and looking after yourself, even if you need to go stay with a friend, I think that stuff is all relevant and important. And give yourself time. Broken hearts need time to heal. You don't want to rush that process, because the more quality you bring to it, the better you'll set yourself up for what's next. And sometimes times of heartbreak also teach us stuff about ourselves that we didn't know. I released a video when we were in New Zealand in December 19. I can't remember the exact name of it, but it has a thumbnail that has the word heartbreak on it. I talk about how to get over a broken heart. So if you haven't watched that video, I would recommend you go there soon. Yasmin says, Jack, my ex keeps contacting me, but he hurts me every time and makes me feel horrible. He asked me to sleep with him, but that is not what I want. I want to be able to forget about him, but he does not stop. Okay, so this is where hard no contact, 100% no contact will serve you. So I'm imagining that you haven't blocked him, you haven't possibly unfollowed or unfriended or disconnected on social media, because that is basically, you don't know if he's trying to contact you. Right? That's the situation that we want to get in. So you don't even have to have the decision. Am I going to pick up? Am I not? You actually just don't know that he's trying to contact you, right? That is what hard no contact looks like. All righty, welcome to, we've got some more people who have joined us recently. Thank you so much for being here. If you're watching this after the event, I super appreciate it. I love all these questions. We've got a really global community of people, so thank you so much. I put up on the banner on the screen here, becomingtheone.us/dollar. If you haven't come into the Becoming the One program, it's a great program. It's with my teaching partner, Clayton Olson, who has an outstanding YouTube channel. And we really get to the essence of what it means to become the one, which in our speak is, how can you be the real you and notice that breaks your patterns in relationships. So if you want to break some patterns, come on board. It's a $1 trial. You get 14 days of content. It's hours. It's really good. There's a waking up module, and it really powers people's awareness. I get lots of people write to me and say, wow, this is the deepest relationship program I've ever done. It's different than other stuff out on the market. And if you listen to me right now, whether you like my flavor or not, you might get that we try to be in the real stuff here. So click that link, come on over and join us, take up your trial and be in the program. Abia says, what does it mean when my boyfriend started to calling me Mrs. and said his surname? Interesting. Maybe he's trying it on for size. I don't know exactly. I wouldn't think that's a bad thing. And you could probably get curious and ask him, right? As unmysterious as that may sound, far be it from me to kind of know what another guy's experience is. So it might be good just to say, hey, when you do that thing, I like it. I'm curious what you mean by it. If I was going to shoot from the hip, I'd say it probably bodes well, but take that with a grain of salt. Hi to Austin, Texas. Hi to Win. Welcome if you've joined us recently. All right, another question from Luella. How do you know if you've truly forgiven someone so you can move on? Husband left year after being caught having an affair. I want to be free from the hurt and move on. I think you'll know, right? That's probably going to be the most frustrating answer to you at some level, right? But knowing is I know when I know, and I know when I don't know, and I'm comfortable with the unknowing, right? So if I am asking the question, have I really forgiven someone fully? Probably you haven't. And this might be the opportunity to just keep stepping into that more fully, right? The way to be free from the hurt is to go through the hurt, right? Not to avoid it, not to wish it were different, but to be with it and face it as best you can. There's something so powerful, right? So many of us have a fear of abandonment, right? But we abandon ourselves in our own emotional experience, right? So if you want to be free from the hurt, you might have to say, hey, sweetie, right? This is you to you, or you to your inner child, or you to your little one, or you to the one that's hurt. Hey, I'm not going to abandon you in this. We're going to face this together, right? We're going to go through this. We're going to get stronger. It's going to be difficult, but I will be with you every step of the way. That might be the opportunity that's in front of you. Sometimes we have the experience that we're so frustrated with the hurt, or we're so kind of fearful of the hurt, or we're so overwhelmed that we kind of just want it to end. And normally it will keep coming back until it's delivered the message that it needs, or until it's been fully seen, right? You may have heard this metaphor before, like there's a knock at the door. Oh, who's here? Oh, it's grief. Grief, come in, welcome. How long are you going to stay? 3 days. Okay, you're welcome, come. Knock at the door. Who is it? Joy. Joy. Oh, Joy, how long are you going to be here? Okay, 20 minutes, fine. Come in, have a cup of coffee, right? It's like that orientation to your emotions. You don't have to control how long they're going to be here. It's really freaking hard when they're difficult emotions and you have to keep going through it. But there's something that when you slow it down and really get present to it, drop the narrative and feel it more directly, most of this stuff passes quicker than when we resist it, right? So sometimes someone can say, I haven't gone over this guy because they've been resisting letting go and fully grieving for years. And that's part of why they haven't got over him, right? So give yourself the time and space to really fully feel what you need to feel. For forgiveness, remember, anger, resentment, get that stuff out of the way. And then you'll have a better chance. And you'll know when you're done. You'll know when I could say his name to you and it doesn't really bring up much, right? Maybe it just brings up I'm happy he's on his path. I wish him well, right? But you don't get to that point by shortcuts. You have to go through. Hey, if you're watching this right now, please give the video a like or a love. I'd really appreciate it. It helps us get the word out. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel, come and subscribe to my YouTube channel. I'll put in the comments here, bit.ly/Jack Butler subscribe. I release at least 2 new videos every week at the moment. And I would love to have you with us. It's a really cool community. All right. Rhonda says, thank you, Jack. I always enjoy whatever you have to say. Super appreciate that. Thank you. Thanks for being here. Zion, I'm in therapy and I can suggest it. Awesome. Kathy says, only guys who are really looking for a relationship with me will date slowly, but they are few and very far between, as the saying goes. Yeah, I think that's a good thing, right? Like, it's kind of helpful that there's that filter in place. That's how I would look at that. That, yeah, there may only be 1, 2, 3 guys that would take it slow, and that's awesome. That's where you put your attention. Anne says, after a year with I don't want a relationship guy, COVID has forced me into complete isolation. During this time alone, I've regained my strength to move on from someone. Enjoy you. Awesome. I love that that opportunity has come to you and you've taken it in this time. Thank you, Jack. I'm based in the UK, so less sociable than US, but I'll keep my chin up and soldier on. Got it. Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. I don't know. I mean, you tell me about different kinds of sociability. Just focus on what it is that you want, and if it's there, it will keep coming your way. Hello to Camillus, New York, and oh, I wish I remember how to say this. I've been to New Zealand. Dunedin. I don't think you say it like that, do you? Is it Dunedin? I don't know. I probably absolutely butchered it, but welcome, New Zealand. I was so impressed by the land there. All right, 3 years and he still doesn't want commitment, but he's still calling me. I stopped all physical connection a year ago. Yeah, block him, right? Like, is that contributing to your life? Is it contributing to his life, right? When a guy shows up with this sort of like confused energy towards a woman, does that really serve him? Does that help him be a better man, right? So it's like, this isn't just for you sometimes. This is actually improves the whole situation. Clarity is power, mutually. Hello, Galveston Island, Texas. Hi to Twinkie and Moni. Kathy, what are men doing? They're not in groups, not on Match much anymore. I smile at everyone. Where are the men? Are they scared to date now? Men are everywhere doing all sorts of things. So I try and avoid too many of those kind of gross generalizations about men, and I try and focus on one man, a guy that you want to be in connection with. And there's plenty of men. I mean, here's the reality, right? This is true, I think, for men and women. Most people are having a bit of a crisis of connection, and that might have been exacerbated, obviously, during this lockdown time. But even before lockdown, right, there's a lot of lonely hearts, right? There's a lot of people who don't have the same sense of community from their local community, from their associations, their work, their church, whatever things they've historically been involved with. So men want connection, I think, more than ever in some ways, right? Now, there's also all this candy. There's all this kind of instant connection. There's all this kind of, hit me up, hook up, all that stuff. And when a guy really gets it, that he gets more from an actual real blooded connection, and that's what you can offer him, most men choose that, I think, if they're in a stage where they're ready for it. So I wouldn't worry too much. That, it's like the old adage, pick up a rock and throw it. Whoever it lands, talk to that guy, right? Just start wherever you are. And so many men on dating apps, right? Whether their intentions are, I genuinely want a relationship, that's a different question. But they are on dating apps in their millions. So it's not hard to start a conversation. Do you think it's really important to put up sexy photos on Match? Hate to convert that first, but maybe it would help me get dates. I would go for attractive photos versus explicitly sexy photos. I would try and bring out who you are, and yeah, feel free to show a little bit of edge. I just think if you go too explicitly sexy, I think the energy that you attract isn't probably the energy of relationship. Anna, dear Jack, so grateful for your presence in my life. You're welcome. Thanks to you and other relationship inspirational coaches, I paused, reassessed, and eventually said goodbye to 2 years of entanglement. Awesome. Good on you. All the power to you. And thanks for bearing witness to that. That is a message that I like to be sharing in this community. Sydney says, when is an appropriate time to ask what a guy is looking for? Third date, 1 month. Yeah, also just when your intuition notices that feels like the questions are rising, right? There's a kind of a presence and attunement to the moment where you notice, yeah, this feels like the right time intuitively to bring this into the space. And as you may have heard me say before, the right guy doesn't become the wrong guy because you asked that too early. So particularly if you can ask it in an unattached way, not like, I need you to say that you want to be in a relationship with me. If you can, because there's two aspects, simplistically speaking, of a guy wanting to be in a relationship with you, right? There's the personal aspect, but there's also the impersonal aspect. The impersonal aspect is he at a time in his life, a season in his life, and a stage of his masculine development where it makes sense for him to extend his circle of concern to a partner? And a lot of the times guys aren't in that place. So we also want to know that, right? Like, what is he thinking? What is he orienting to? And also just take it with a little pinch of salt. Like, I'm such a fan of clarifying conversations. but can every guy, myself included, historically, certainly, articulate exactly what we're available for? Maybe we can, but maybe we often can't, right? I might think of myself as partnership material, but I don't notice I'm in a season of my life where that actually isn't appropriate for me. So have the conversations, ask the questions, have that conversation more than once, but also just notice the actions, because over 3, 6, 9 months, you can usually tell when a guy is showing up and also wanting to deepen and further the relationship, right? So trust yourself in that. All right, Phoenix Fire. God, another one of these great YouTube names. Hey, Jack, love your work so much. Can you please give some advice on how to argue in a constructive, healthy way? I start out being calm, but if I don't get the reassurance I need, I quickly get upset. Got it. So how explicitly have you shared with your partner what the reassurance you need is? I would make zero assumptions that they actually know what that is and that they actually have the capacity yet to do that. Right? So imagine you've got to do a little bit of training, right? This is what reassuring me might look like. Now, not as a demand, you have to do it as a full invitation, as a request, you get to decide, but that's what I would love for you to be able to do. And obviously you want to have this conversation at a time when you're not arguing, right? Does reassurance look like I physically leave where I'm sitting and I come and sit by your side and put my arm around you? Does reassurance mean I tell you I love you in the midst of an argument? Yeah, kind of get into that, because even simplistically speaking, between love languages, apology languages, and the things that happen to you in childhood that would be different than your partner, you may have all sorts of differences going on there. And we don't want to subjectify our partner, right? We don't want to make them wrong because they do something that's different for us, but we do want to try and get more of our needs met. So I would go into a training regimen, and I think that was probably going to be a series of conversations. And then you can also get curious about your partner. What do they need, right? For some of us, and this is more in my wheelhouse, I just want to know that we can stay in that conversation, even in that argument, if it gets heated, right? Even if you feel like I'm not reassuring you in the way that you want, I would love to be able to stay in that heat with you, because I think in that heat, a lot of goodness can come, as well as sometimes some stuff that's a bit destructive or even a lot destructive, right? So find out about each other. It's a great opportunity. I become emotionally angry, my partner becomes defensive and then angry. We both acknowledge that we're hotheads. Yeah, got it. Keep practicing, right? Keep practicing. My partner says he feels I don't let him speak or explain, or if he's not giving me the response I would ideally like. Got it. Yeah, it's so hard to be calm in the moment. Yeah, it is. It totally is. Because, you know, even if you look at something like IFS, right, internal family systems work, there's going to be a whole bunch of people that show up in your arguments, right? A protector, right? Some things that you've exiled that you don't actually show the light of day most of the time. Perhaps some strategies that one of your parents deployed with you as a kid. All sorts of stuff is going to show up. But it's a great edge of practice. It's difficult. I can know it can be so painfully difficult. But keep at it and keep talking about basically zero assumption. That's what I'm going to leave you with. Zero assumption that anyone knows what you need, and don't make them wrong for that. Just keep training them. My boyfriend called me Mrs. Surname at first time. I didn't reply. Then he called me again. What does it mean? I did answer that earlier, but I like that you're sharing that again. Hello, Wendy. I'm from beautiful BC. Hope you're hitting summer up there. I've got family up in BC. All right. Hi, Jack. How do I balance being open for connection without seeming too available and low value? I seem to be collecting male friends. I'm clear with them about what I want, and I'm happy in my own life. It always seems like it's not the right time for them. Is it possible I'm being too easygoing and open? Appreciate your work so much. Thank you. Interesting question. So here's the thing. When you meet the right guy, I think that this thing of like being too available for connection may not really be a major factor, right? When two people want to connect, the fact that you're available for connection is then a good thing. It might be there's some edges where you then struggle if he's taking some space or if he goes in his man cave. That might be some of your work. But when someone's into you, they don't generally say, look, I'm so into you, but you're just a bit too available for connection. Maybe if they're more on the avoidance side. But even then, I don't know if they would explicitly be saying that. They might just be a bit more focused in on their own life. Here's what I would consider for you to do, which is I would consider for you to clear the field a little bit of your male friends in order that you keep that energy most available for the full enchilada, right? Because it will keep you most turned on to masculine energy, right? Assuming it's a sort of a guy in his masculine essence is kind of guy you're looking for. If you don't have a lot of that in your friends, and you also don't have the unclarity of, maybe if we were drunk, we would sleep together, or maybe if he went with his girlfriend, he'd want to date me, or maybe one night after a deep and meaningful conversation, something might be possible. When you have those kind of guys in your field, it equals lack of clarity. Clarity is power. So lack of clarity, lack of power to have the intention show up that you really want to show up in your life. So I'm not a fan of having a whole load of male friends if you're not in the relationship you want to be in. I would dial that down. You can always add it back in, right? You've got that relationship. Cool. I've got a couple of slots, but mostly when that relationship gets dialed in, there's less interest in male friendship because more of that is being met through your actual relationship. Would you say that someone who comes on strong, showering you with compliments and attention is a red flag? That's a great question. I'm sure that's relevant to a lot of people. Here's what I would do internally or even externally. Thank you so much for the compliment. I appreciate that. I don't know who you are to me. Right? I don't know who you are to me can be internal. You don't have to voice that bit. But it's basically like, can I receive it, enjoy it, but make no story out of it? And this is going to be especially difficult if your love language is words of appreciation, right? My observation from my coaching work is when our love language is words of appreciation, we're particularly susceptible to guys that shower the compliments. So just kind of enjoy it, like enjoy his charm, enjoy his charisma. Just realize that there's things that are a lot more real than charm and charisma. And the fact that you're noticing could be a red flag, yeah, just keep your intuition there. You'll know over time, right? So a lot of guys can turn that stuff up for a week or a month, maybe even longer. But when it comes to 3, 6, 9, 12 months, sometimes that stuff dials back, right? And it could be a form of kind of love bombing. It doesn't necessarily need to be malicious. Sometimes it's just, yeah, if I'm super attracted to you, it's really easy for me to say, wow, you have such a beautiful smile. I love your hair. I love how you look. You turn me on. I'm so excited to be here. That could be completely genuine. It's just attraction and chemistry isn't the same thing as long-term relationship compatibility. And the more I distinguish that in myself, the more I can just enjoy it, but not imagine it's something that it isn't, right? You know, if you go on holiday to a country, you can really enjoy it, but you don't imagine that it's your home, right? It's that sort of thing. Enjoy it, but minimal narrative about it. I like that you're tracking that. DC, I literally been getting breadcrumbs, Jackie boy, breadcrumbs lately. And he said he'd call tonight and he didn't. If he comes around with an excuse, what do I do? Should I tell him how I feel or should I just move on? Yeah, so glad you asked this because this kind of thing can come up in a lot of guises, right? Whether it's punctuality, it's you said you'd call and you didn't, it's some kind of broken agreement, lack of follow through. It's never going to feel good, particularly to the feminine. Why? Because it starts to lower your trust, right? So you say you're going to do a thing, but you don't do it. Now, how can I trust you? So I would reveal the impact. That's where I'd go. I wouldn't try and become his counselor, coach, mother. You don't have to make him wrong. You can just say, hey, I want you to know that when you said you were going to call and you didn't, here's what happened for me. Stay on my side of the fence, right? So I'm not necessarily in a blame orientation. I'm in a, this is real. This is what shows up for me. It actually has me trust you a little bit less. Or I just want you to know that I checked my phone 10 times. That feels like a waste of energy to me, right? So be in your truth, be in your reality, and know that if that is a pattern, I'm going to say he's probably not your guy because it's going to be really hard to relax into the relationship if you can't trust that. And we don't need to have 100% standard, right? No person, no guy probably does what they say they're going to do 100% of the time, but we are going to have like a 90, 95+% standard, right? So we certainly 80% plus. We want like most of the time when you say you're going to do something, it actually happens. Particularly where we have an agreement. I'm not saying, you know, oh, one day I'm going to start a business. And you're like, well, you didn't start that business yet. Like I'm distinguishing kind of aspirations, dreams, ideas, intuitions from, hey, you and I have an agreement that we're going to get together at 5 o'clock, right? Or I said that I would call you before going to bed. That's not great. And if I'm working with a guy, I would try to clean that up and say, you need to get a little bit more integrity with what you say. All right, Lou Regina, I recently reconnected with a man that I had a strong mental connection with several months ago. He initiated a 1.5-hour phone conversation. How do I let him know I'm interested without chasing him? Yeah, you green light him, right? You say, hey, I'd love to get to know you more. Or, hey, I've really enjoyed spending time with you. I look forward to it happening again. But then you don't take that next step and try and nail him down for the date. So you make it clear. You make it clear what your energy and intention is. Now, the right guy, if he's interested, he'll really take all that because he's like, cool, that's now sort of safe, right? A lot of guys ultimately fear rejection. They don't want to come onto you and then realize you're not into it. If you just say, hey, I really welcome getting to know you, then for a lot of guys, that is either that I'm going to step through that threshold or not. And if I don't, that's when you might decide that you're going to let it go. Angela says, red flags that are things that may bother you become huge later. Don't disregard, be firm and strict. Yeah, stand up for yourself. Yeah, totally. Swinky Bunny, how do you tell the difference between Enneagram 9 and someone who has harmony in their essence? I don't know. That's a good question. I'm sure there's probably some overlap between those, right? So it could be that it's both and. I'm curious what you mean by harmony in their essence. Like, you might mean that harmony is a really high value for them. You might mean that if we look at it from an MBTI, Jungian, Myers-Briggs perspective, right? There's one of those polarities is the TF, right? Like ISTP or ENFJ, that TF, thinker, feeler. Feelers tend to prioritize harmony, right? Whereas thinkers tend to prioritize truth. So we sometimes call that the truth harmony polarity, or I do. So yeah, I mean, I'm curious in a way whether you would need to know. I mean, the best way to tell someone's Enneagram type is to have them try and type themselves, right? Ideally, we don't go around too much trying to type other people. We invite them into the conversation and see if they want to type themselves. I didn't really invest emotionally in him, thank God. And I've been seeing this guy for 10 months and talking to him for a year. Good. Whoa. My little scrolly McScrolly took a little bit of a jump down here. All right. What to do when emotionally unavailable guy gets back in touch wanting to meet up since I went no contact 6 months ago? What's true for you? I mean, here's the rub for me in this. If an emotionally unavailable I'm speaking so fast, I gotta say this is a phrase that I think I coined here, right? Emotionally available, unavailable guy. If you haven't come across that, check that out. It's in a bunch of my videos about emotionally unavailable men. Emotionally available means he can connect with you. He's emotionally literate. He's available in his heart. He can go deep with you. He can love on you, but he's unavailable in that he's not actually available for a real partnership, right? He doesn't actually want that, or he's not at a stage of his masculine development where that makes sense to him. So something has to substantively changed, right? So there's a couple options here. One is your intuition is nothing's changed, so you don't even pursue it. The second is maybe something's changed, so you open the door a little bit, and you don't have to be committal or anything like that. You just notice, has something changed? And if something's really changed, he should be able to articulate it in a way of, here's the thing that's changed, right? I've had a realization, or I've gone into therapy, or I've done some work on myself, and that you actually see it manifested over time in actions, right? So that's the thing. You could meet up for a coffee and just say, hey, this is a completely non-committal coffee. I'll give you half an hour of my time. I'll give you a listening to. What's changed? What's up? But you don't start going out on dates again, right? You're kind of in a conversation with him. That's where I'd orient with that. And a lot of the time, honestly, things haven't changed. And that might just be the brutal truth of it. Safari Queen, I lost my husband nearly 4 years ago. I've been seeing a guy for just over 3 years. Where should the relationship be? I don't know. I mean, I don't think there's a script. This is two souls figuring stuff out, two people with, essences and wounds and defenses and all that good stuff, just good human stuff. So 3 years for most men is long enough to work out, do I want to make some kind of commitment to you, right? There's some men that might not come in their range. Maybe they're not the kind of guys that tend to step more into their initiative and their commitments. But for most men, that's long enough. So if that's what you mean, yeah, I'd be having some clarifying conversations about, what is this? How do you see me? Am I in your heart? Is there anyone else in your heart? What do you tell your guy friends about this relationship? Those are the kinds of questions that often cut to the chase of what's actually true here. Jack, I haven't spoken to my lover in 5 days. What's the best way to let him go? Choose your favorite way to let him go. And I say that because any way is better than no way, right? Perfect is not the standard. Done is better. So if it's true that that's actually what you're going to do, I would make a succinct communication. If you've been dating for a bit, I would do it in real time, in person if you can. Christina says, it's a great program I had in August last year. It changed completely my way of relationships. Thank you, Jack Hart. Awesome. I so appreciate that. Let me just throw that back up on the screen. So Christina is... let me know how to do that. There we go. She's talking about this. She's talking about the Becoming the One program, becomingtheone.us/$. I will put it one more time here in the comments. And that is the easiest way to access this program. Be part of our community for a couple of weeks, give it a test try, and you'll get some really great information, even if it's not right for you longer term. But I get a lot of messages like this. Life-changing is a big word. Lots of people come back to me and say this has been really life-changing. It's just a different way and orientation to relationships. It's very different than a lot of the orientation that I see on dating channels and dating coaches on YouTube, which in my sensibility is a little bit here. And we're kind of going deeper into who are you at your identity level? What did you inherit from your childhood? How are you bringing that into your relationships? What are your unconscious expectations of your partner? What are the kinds of things that you don't have a right to? So you keep being a pleaser, you keep being a caregiver, you keep overextending yourself, you keep treating yourself like a doormat, and then you're wondering why the right guy isn't showing up, right? This is to say, let's polish your mirror. Let's have you relax some of the structures. Not perfect. No one's going to be perfect. No one's going to be 100% self-love all the time. But let's really have a look at that stuff so that you've got your best chance, that you're not looking for a guy that wants to find a pleaser, right? And he's like, great, you want to please me, so now I can treat you badly and you continue to show up. No, let's not constellate a relationship around that. You don't need a guy that needs a full-time caregiver. Cool, surrogate mummy, thanks so much. No, let's not do that, right? This is like being in the adult maturity business when it comes to relationships and using relationship as path, right? When I first heard that expression, I was like, it doesn't even resonate to me. It sounds a little bit bolder, sounds a little bit woo-woo, relationship as path. And what I've realized is that is so a meaningful expression, relationship as a path of consciousness, wakefulness, right? Where else are you going to wake up? Is your work going to wake you up as much as a relationship with someone that's going to reflect your patterns and be in the heat of conflict with you? For most of us, the answer is just no. I love my work. I freaking love that I get to do this. It's amazing. Is this going to wake me up the same as someone being around me day to day, showing me my myopia, showing me the places that I'm not free? No, that's the opportunity of relationships. Sometimes it's really hard, but it's so meaningful. So that's if that's of interest, definitely come and take this trial. It's $1. It's a fifth the price of a Starbucks. Come on, let's do it. All right. So Nina says, thank you, Jack. You're awesome. I super appreciate that. Okay, I'm going to start skipping here a little bit. Diane, began a relationship with a man 3 months before I moved across country for a job. Tried to make long distance work, but communication has drastically decreased. Time to end it. Yeah, I just have a clarifying conversation with him. Just let him know exactly how you feel. Let him know that maybe there's this intention that it's not going anywhere. See if there's any information in that conversation that has you think anything different. But yeah, sometimes distance is clarifying, right? I mean, God, I've had so much distance in relationships in my life, and it takes a ton of energy. And if you want it, you can make it work, but you got to both want it. And if you don't, it's really tricky. The standard, the bar is higher in long distance relationship, in my view. Chloe, I love listening to your show. It helps me so much to understand, guys. Thanks from Paris. Awesome. You're welcome. I love Paris. It's been too long. I used to go there a lot in my youth. I have not been there, I think, for probably 15 years. Whoa. Whoa. All right. Hi, Jack. Thank you for your time. Your approach and examples are abundantly valuable. How could I approach saying to a man authentically and kindly how to encourage his growth, focus, and integrity? I would get a therapist or a coach to say that to him. That's a difficult thing, I think, just generally. Anytime we sort of step into that role of like, hey, let me be the kind of purveyor and champion of your growth, that's difficult. At one level, yes, we want to be in an orientation that we want our partners to grow. But anytime that we believe we're the authorities on that, or we know how they should grow, that tends to be kind of tricky territory. I would be much more interested in asking him some open-ended questions. How do you see yourself growing right now? Where do you feel most present in your life? What are your aspirations for your journey in the coming years? Where do you feel most stuck? Where do you feel least expressed? Where do you feel most likely to be yourself or to not be yourself? I would start there with curiosity about him and see what that catalyzes, rather than sort of suggesting, I don't know, videos or pieces of work or things that he's got to do. And I'd also start with a reveal. What are you learning about being in relationship with him? Right? Where are your edges of development? Where are your edges of growth? Because that might also inspire him to reveal or open up. So yes, I love when you talk that fast. All right, are you ready? Here we go. Chloe, my boyfriend and I, we broke up since January since it was COVID and we were in a wrong relationship. He said he felt confused right now, but still watching my WhatsApp status every day. Yeah, that's called confused energy. I think a lot of guys are going to do that, right? Because they miss the connection. So they hang on. So they track you on social media. If you don't want to invest time in that, I would be unfollowing and letting it go. If you say you want to break up, back it up. Do not passive aggressive, use an empty threat. Absolutely correct. Yep, I like that. I appreciate that. Linda, thanks, Jack. I love your live chats. Awesome. Joe says, why does my ex stay with his serial cheating wife? It hurts feeling rejected in favor of his wife with low morals. Yeah, that can be really sucky when you've been with someone and then you're like, wow, this is what you want. This is what you're with. I would just try and find the humility that you and I don't really know what someone's path is, right? So I might have my beliefs, I might even have my judgments about your path or about your new lover or your new wife or whatever it is. It's kind of my business in some ways, and it may or may not actually be true. So I would be more curious about how can you release him? How can you release the hurt? And that might be that you just have to kind of wish him well and then do the work on yourself. Get a coach, therapist, get something that can really intensively work that with you, because he's a free agent now. He gets to have his life and you get to have your view of that, but it probably doesn't help you to be spending that much time on it. Translate to guy speak. I agree, but I have to be careful not to lose my feminine. Yes, certainly. Certainly, I take that. It's just, I find you get more from guys when you can say something succinctly than give them the whole story. Eddie says, he gives me a ring unceremoniously, then says his adult son will freak out if I wear it, then texts probably drunk to wear ring, calls drunk telling me about women he's met at a bar, long distance relationship, not my guy. Yeah, I'm not sure that anything about there is making me excited for your connection with this. Yeah, maybe don't take the calls, maybe go no contact, maybe move on in your life. If there's an alcohol problem, that needs to get looked at. It can be really tricky, right? Because when people are drunk, they say things that can hurt. They say things that you're wondering, do you really mean it? They can make marriage proposals. It's just hard to really relax and rely on that, and much better that someone can find their sobriety and then you decide if you want to have a relationship. He's just not that into you. Yep. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't subscribed. There it is, bit.ly/Jack Butler subscribe. Release at least 2 new videos every week on relationships and personal growth. It also means you'll be notified anytime I go live so that you can maximize your chances of being here with us. Also, give this video a like if you haven't. 37 of you have already. I know we've got more people watching. If you give the video a like, I'd super appreciate it. It just helps get word out and let people know that this is something that you're into. So smash that like button. LC says, hey, Jack, my ex texts weekly. Am I okay? And if I need anything, he is here for me. I said, we'll be good to chat. He said he doesn't want to reconcile. I'm scared to close the door as I feel alone. Help. Yeah. Super common. I get this. You might have to feel your aloneness, right? Sometimes we end up hanging on to things because we don't want to feel certain things, but it kind of cheats us in the long term. So if you haven't watched it, I've got a video on YouTube that I released last July that is something like, help me, I feel lonely. And I really distinguish in that video between aloneness and loneliness, right? Loneliness is the feeling of I'm not really liking being alone. Aloneness is I'm on my own. And for a lot of us, we can learn how to really appreciate aloneness. I mean, look, I grew up in a small house, lots of people. So I was never really alone growing up. And probably one of the most profound things happened to me in my early 30s is I lived alone and I learned how to value it and enjoy it. And I know that part of that experience was I'm lonely and I want connection, and it's, you know, the sun's going down and I don't have anyone here and I want connection. And that's just a difficult experience, right? And there's something about learning how to really get in touch with yourself that can be super profound. I wouldn't keep an ex in your life. I don't want your ex texting. If your ex is there for anything, let him show up. Let the standard be 1, not 0. Let's find someone else that wants to actually show up for you, right? Texting you once a week, fine. But why is he really doing that? Like when a guy wakes up and really gets it, there's nothing loving about holding on to a woman that you're not going to show up for, right? Or maybe nothing loving is me saying it strongly. Maybe it's just not as loving at all as, oh, I get it. I'm not going to show up for you. So why don't I let the space be free so that someone else can, even if you think less of me right now? That might be real love. All right, Carol says, question is Carol from Florida. Hey, Carol, how you doing? It's good to see you here. Good friend is dating guy who I know lives with his mom, and his ex co-signed motorcycle loan. She asked my opinion. I told her. She decided to continue to date him, and now I'm not sure how to proceed with the friendship. I truly don't want to hear about him. Any suggestions? Yeah, that's a little difficult, right? When there's something that's kind of in a friend's life that, I mean, what it sounds like is you have your view, and possibly you also have your judgment, right? So this might be a little chance to work with some judgment there. I can ask your opinion. I don't have to accept your opinion, right? What you might say is, I'm not getting a lot from hearing about this person. I'm wondering if we could, you know, minimize that, or perhaps I could create a little space for it, right? Like I'm willing to hear 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and then I'd like to change the conversation. And if someone can't hear that, then maybe they're not really that interested in your experience, right? Now it's tricky if they're going to feel judged in there, because that might also be coming up. But sometimes you just have to get real, but try and do it in a way that's not threatening, where it's just sort of like, hey, I don't feel particularly drawn to that conversation, right? Or I'm I don't feel like you've really listened to me in this territory, right? So it's a little hard for me to hear about this all the time. That's where I'd start with it. I'd make an authentic request that they can actually say yes or no to, and see what's what. Hello, I have a question. How can I stop checking on X and his new girlfriend? I feel awful after checking on them. Yeah, I mean, yeah, you need to stop doing that. I know that's going to be really simplistic for me to say that. It's like, you know, if you're an alcoholic, right, you can't go down the bar, right? You can't be down the bar and saying, how do I avoid having a drink? You've got to take yourself out of the environments that are your slippery slopes. So the way to stop checking on an ex is to disconnect on social media, is to delete their number, is to not have access to checking on them. And every time you would go check on them, have a substitute behavior, right? Call a friend, hit the gym, go for a hike, pour yourself a cup of coffee, take a bath, have a shower, light a candle, do a prayer, have a meditation, go shopping, do whatever you need to do so that you don't engage in that behavior, because that's a slippery slope that's kind of keeping you locked in. And if you need to fully grieve or heal or do some work, go find someone or context in which you can do that work, right? Because it won't get easier if you keep engaging in that behavior. In Spirit B, you're awesome, Jack. Thank you. Appreciate that. Heather Connor's amazing work, feeling healthier with a better head in regards to dating now that I heard you on your other videos, books, and programs. Awesome. Thanks so much for being here. Thanks, Jack. We'll get more present with the program. I'm a member, been off peace for a while. Awesome. Great. Yeah, I welcome that. Clarity is power. Clarity is power, yes, but mystery is sexy for sure. Yeah. The kind of mystery that's less sexy is when it's like I'm so in and out that this is just, it's kind of hijacking my nervous system all the time. And so net, it's not actually any kind of positive contributor to my life. You can still do mystery is sexy in the context that we actually both know that we want to do something together. Otherwise, you can be mystery in the realm of lovership, which can be, you know, very mysterious, but you're just not going to have a secure attachment and not be in a partnership. That is also a choice. How do I stop the expectations? A simple good morning before the first text message of the day. Yeah, I mean, that's a profound spiritual question at one level, right? How do we stop having expectations, right? Because most of us are doing this. Expectations, disappointments, false hope, disappointments. So you're kind of like, how do we get off the peaks and valleys? You know, simplistically, that's about equanimity, right? Being more equanimous, like learning how to not attach so much to our experiences, learning how to not invest so much meaning. I mean, really, how do I stop the expectations is also how do I stop the stories? Most people that have really strong expectations kind of live a story-fied reality where they're always creating meaning and stories out of everything. Now, it's hard to not do that at all, but we can certainly turn the volume down on that. If I don't have a story about you, then I'm free to see what's actually here. Now, if for you to be in a relationship, it's really important that you get a good morning text, that might be something that you can negotiate with the right partner. It might be that someone wants to do that for you anyway. So there may be an actual request that you have kind of within that. How do I communicate my needs, says Chelsea, to a confrontational partner that feels attacked when I say I feel blank? Yeah, that's really difficult. I hear that. So it might be there's a little bit of over responsibility on their part, right? Or a little bit of codependence, right? So you don't have a right to your feelings because your feelings, I'm feeling like responsible, like I've got to fix them or sort them. Or if you feel that way, it's maybe I should feel bad about myself. I would have a conversation when you're not being confrontational, right? And say, you can even use you can even use words like design me. How would you like me to bring my feelings to you, right? Particularly my feelings that I'm not making you responsible for, I'm not judging you for, it's just how I feel. So find a quiet moment. You can use it like, how would that go? Wave your magic wand. How would you want that to work? Because you can often learn something about your partner and they might even learn something about themselves, right? Here's the difficult territory, I think, and I don't know if this is coming up for you, but I'm just going to own this sometimes as a man. If I'm a little bit more in my logical brain at times, right? And maybe the feminine's more likely to be in the emotional brain. So like what I feel right now is most true to me. Whereas for me, what's most true to me is not just what I feel right now. It's what seems to be true maybe over time. Then there can be this gray territory where it's like, okay, so the reason you're feeling a certain thing is because there's a rationale behind that I don't actually buy into. And if we change your rationale, you probably wouldn't be feeling this way. So that, I don't know if that's relevant to this. As a guy, sometimes you have to learn just how to drop that, right? But it's not always easy. And sometimes I'm not very good at dropping that, where it's like, you know, if you're upset because your friend didn't call you, but I actually know your friend did call you, they just weren't able to get through, Like, would that change how you feel about something, right? So even though most of the time my orientation is what's your authentic emotional experience? How do you feel? Express that. If there are certain cognitive biases or potential errors, and that's, subjective, that may have gone into that thinking, I think that's where a lot of guys find it difficult. So just sort of knowing that, maybe there's a little bit more compassion you can also have, and space for his experience. And maybe if he's the kind of confrontational that doesn't work for you, maybe that doesn't work for you, right? Maybe he has a different defense style than you, right? So confrontational, in my language, we call that dynamic defense. When I defend it, I get strong, and I'm more likely to get front foot and assertive. Whereas for a lot of people, and probably for more women, your defense style might also be disarming, right? So when I'm upset, I try and minimize, or I try and laugh, or I try and kind of push it off, so that we're like harmony over truth rather than truth over harmony. So sometimes if you can get in touch with your own ability to be a bit more dynamic in your defense, or kind of appreciate that part of you, sometimes it's a little easier to be with it in someone else, right? The other thing is you can maybe ask him what he's feeling and start over there with him. And then maybe if he's revealed what he's feeling, it's a bit easier for you. But what you're talking about is a real common problem. So keep practicing, hang in there. How do you show a guy you're interested without chasing him? You say, I'm interested in you. You let him know. I like you. I like hanging out with you. I like spending time with you. I would welcome spending more time with you. Could we spend more time together? So all those things, we kind of call that green lighting sometimes, right? You give the guy the green light that you like him, but you then don't make the effort. You don't chase him down. If he's not chasing you down, or if he's not bringing that date, then you might have to let it go, because you've let him know that you're interested. Amelia says, ooh, I don't quite get that question. Maybe you can rephrase that and I'll come back to it. Thank you so much for these questions, by the way. This is so awesome. B. Cobble says his feelings 100% is probably, unless he's feeling attacked, make you feel attacked. All right. Chloe says, my ex-boyfriend doesn't want me back, but why? I keep watching my watch app say this. Yes, I got this. I think I came to this. This is such a common thing. You need to cut contact so that that's not even on your radar. Bria, met a guy on Insta 2 months ago. He wants to have a conversation about us. We haven't met in person. Should I admit feelings for him or wait for him? Strong connection, great chemistry, mutual friends. Yeah, I don't think there's a right and wrong with that. I would trust yourself to notice. My rule with this is, if you're going to say, I love you, I have feelings for you, be unattached to what you hear back. Right? So if I can't say I love you without needing you to say it back to me, I don't think you're ready yet to say it. But otherwise, I think it's a beautiful thing when you say you've got feelings for someone. And hey, if it's not right for them, I still think it takes courage, and I just appreciate that. Kim says thank you from London. Awesome. Candy says hi. Seeing someone for 2.5 weeks. Is there a clear way to know if someone has empathy for you? He's quiet in person, more vocal over the phone. I imagine you can intuit that. Right? What lets you know that you have empathy, right? Probably something that you say, the way you say it, perhaps the way that you attune or that you show up for other people's experience. If by empathy for you, you mean feelings, like romantic feelings, that's a little bit different. And if that's the case, yeah, at some point, one of you makes a reveal, right? Where you declare, hey, we've got feelings. And I would generally encourage you to reveal first and to kind of ask and put the other person on the spot. But 2.5 weeks, it's pretty early days. So I would let some more water go under the bridge. B. Colwell, do guys respond to a female who speaks guy speak? Yeah, I think they probably do on average, because it just makes it a little easier for them to compute. You know, that doesn't mean that there are other times where you might not use guy speak, but particularly if a guy is busy at work or kind of stressed, so he's not just in a relaxed state and you have something you need from him or a request, I would say it's succinct. And if you need to really process something, I would process it elsewhere if you can, and then bring the slightly more succinct version to him. You know, unless he's got the time or space, or he's really strong in that kind of process territory, you might find you benefit from processing things with girlfriends, and then you kind of bring something that's a little bit more baked, you actually get more from him. But live it as an experiment. Like, I'm curious what your experience is. All right, it's just lost my place here. I need to go to school for max scrolling. Chelsea, so this is the follow-up. If I say, I feel like you, he responds, don't tell me what I think. How should I correct my phrasing? You should say, I feel about myself rather than, so I feel like you is, yeah, I get what he's talking about here. So basically you're naming his experience, and what's your experience? So your experience might be, I have a story that you blah, and I feel sad, angry, disappointed. And I'd even maybe rephrase that. I feel disappointed. Let's just start there, because that's your best chance of keeping you on your side of the fence. You know, just because I use the word I feel, basically, my observation is that in Myers-Briggs, people who are more feeler than thinker use the phrase, I feel like, you know, this is a good place for us to have dinner. Right? That's not really a feeling, right? That's just, I process things more in the language of feelings and thoughts, but it's not actually owning my subjective experience. So anytime you're speaking unarguably, which means I'm speaking my subjective experience, I'm the authority on how I feel, I'm the authority on what's going on inside me. Obviously, other people might be able to add or reflect back other aspects of that, but start there and then go from that. I think you'll get more from him. This is something that I think you can tidy up. Wendy answers, I'm an INFJ, a lot of laughs. You call it, okay, didn't realize that. Maybe we got the FJ crowd here, or the NF crowd, or the I crowd. Not sure. Appreciate that. Yeah, let me know if you know your Myers-Briggs or your Enneagram type. Bang that in. I'm actually really curious. Sabrina says, when I tell a man that I'm done playing and now looking for a serious relationship is when they start going away. I'm very outgoing and fun person. Does that send the wrong message? Maybe. I mean, you got to be yourself, right? So I trust that if your true essence is fun and outgoing, that the right guy is going to connect with that. He's going to like that about you. I'm curious if you could just never play. I mean, right, so there's being like outgoing, but let's be serious in terms of our intentions about the connection, right? So I would be bringing that up front. If you have the experience, oh, we connect, and then I say, I want something serious, and they disappear. Yeah, probably not your guy, so that's a good thing. It's a good filter. But can you bring your seriousness in the early days? Or let's say, how is it possible to be true to the part of me that's outgoing and fun, right? Which maybe I can connect with as a person. And can I just honor that there's one in me that is serious about perhaps, you know, having a guy or being a partner or settling down, right? So said differently, could you overplay to certain parts of your persona, so to speak, and actually underplay other parts? And maybe those other parts we want to dial up and bring them in. Jack is no FJ. He is good though. LOL. Oh, curious. I'm curious what you think my Myers-Briggs type is. Yeah, let me know. Non-committal coffee. Door slam is immature. My boyfriend asked me for exclusivity. Does it mean he's committed? I would ask him. Right? Minimum assumption. I'm going to make minimum assumptions about what things mean to you, how you're experiencing life, why you do what you do. I'm going to get curious. I'm going to ask good open-ended questions. So thank you so much for asking to be exclusive. I just want to get on the same page with you. What does that mean to you? Does that mean anything in terms of our commitment? Right? Because it may absolutely, or it may absolutely not. And I don't know. It depends on the guy. So minimum assumptions. Good questions. Safari Queen says, problem with the link, says can't find site. Let me know which link that is. In case I might have just typed it wrong at one point. Here, I'm just going to put in the link here, my end, and just check that we have not got any kind of downtime issue. Right, that is working my end, so I'm going to post this link. If you were talking about the trial, which I think is probably the link that I posted most to, if it was a subscribe link, you can just hit the video if you're here on YouTube, or you can go to any YouTube video, and under it, I'll normally have a subscribe link. All right, Jack, that last link you added didn't work. Sorry about that. I'm curious which link that was. I have just reposted one. Let me know if that's not it. Phoenix Fire, thank you, Jack. Insightful as always. Appreciate you so much. You're welcome. Runner says, please show some love and appreciation by liking this video. Awesome. I appreciate that. He's helping us all. Give some care back. Teamwork makes the dream work. I love that. Got it. Yes. Give that video a like. Help the old guy out. Thanks. Jack, any phrase that you could share to keep in mind while finding a match in this Wild West dating jungle? I trust. Right? I trust that in right timing and in right season, I'll find the right connection. That would probably be my mantra. I trust that in right timing and in right season, I will find the right connection. Kind of like I'll know when I'll know. And anything before that, I can enjoy it. I can say no to it. I can say yes. But it's like until I get that sort of knowing that we're meant to do something, then I'm waiting. It's okay. Oh, appreciate this, guys. You did my work for me. Also subscribe if you haven't, dear people. Thank you. I appreciate that. Jack, you have and are helping so much. Right on. Okay, so let's take a little time check here. So current time. All right, so I'm 15 minutes behind. I've been catching up. Here we go. I would love your thoughts on men signaling their availability. I find myself feeling manipulated into chasing, so I tend not to step into that dynamic. I'm curious what has you feel manipulated into chasing. If it's that you don't feel like you're being pursued, then that might be something that you can kind of relax on your side of the fence, right? We do have to be mindful. Some of us have this either more like ambivalent attachment preference or style, or we have this kind of push and pull, right? Where it's sort of like, oh, if they've kind of pulled away, then I'm going to push. And then if they come towards me, I kind of move away. And that can be a fun little dance at times, but it doesn't necessarily land you the thing that you're looking for. So I'm curious what would have you stay a little bit more in your center, right? And the guy can come or not, but you don't really have to go out there pursuing. And if a guy doesn't come to you with a clear energy that he wants to get to know you, what is he? He's not your guy. Right? Normally, when a guy knows he wants to get to know you, he knows that, and you'll know it because he's coming towards you. So there's all sorts of other types of men out there that aren't your guy, that might be hot and cold, and that can be arresting, or they're in and then they kind of drop off. You know, your job is to kind of discern that and keep your eye on the game that I think you want to play. Snow Wipes says, what to do if there was no closure or not contacting me after last text is closure? Well, I think closure is on your side of the fence, right? So what do you need for closure? If you need to make another communication, I would do it. Some people find it good to actually write out a communication without deciding whether they're going to send it or not, right? So here's what I would like to say to this guy. I'm going to write that email. Maybe at the end of it, I send it. Maybe I just send it to myself. Maybe I send it with a friend. Sometimes when I coach people, I have people send that sort of stuff to me. So that it has a little bit of completion. It's landed somewhere. But if it's not like I'm trying to open up the conversation with them, then maybe I don't need to send it to them. But I think closure is important. So what is it that you need to make that happen? Morningstar says, my heart has been broken praying for the right boyfriend to come along, and I know better what to pay attention to. Yeah, right on. Well, let's hold that prayer with you. May that be so. Candy says, is there a way to gauge someone's empathy level? Okay, got it. I think I answered that one. Thank you so much for the advice. Appreciate that. Great video. And thanks. Okay, Heather says, after asking for space, he wants to come back. How do I express how much his decision hurt me without attacking him and teach him my boundaries versus my expectations? Got it. Well, I think, like I was saying with Chelsea earlier, I think the more you can just root it in I statements, right? I felt this when you took space, right? I felt this when I didn't know that you were going to be coming back. You also get your choice, right? Is it right for you to have this guy back? Or it might be that you do a very minimal opening of the door. Like, yeah, I'm willing to go for a coffee in a very non-committal way and find out, but I'm not actually getting back into a relationship with you. That's a possibility that may be out there in the future if that really feels good with me, right? Now, sometimes what's difficult is you've got anger and hurt and upset, and that also needs to be expressed. You may want to pre-bake that, right? Hit your journal, hit your coach, go to your best friend and kind of get some of that stuff a little bit more clarified in you. But I think if you're doing it in I statements, and it's okay to let a guy know that he hurt you, that's real, right? Like, I feel hurt is different than you should never do that to me, or you were wrong, right? And maybe what you're asking for is, can we have some agreements around space, right? Maybe that's what you need in order to feel a bit safer in a connection. Maybe also kind of clarifying, is this a guy that you can really work with? I'm curious what kind of space you're talking about. And one way to have it easier, like, let's say it's a kind of space where a guy for maybe like a day or a weekend or something like that, maybe even 3 days, he's taking a lot of space, you don't really hear from him. Sometimes you can learn to work with that more by getting in touch either with your own needs for space or by valuing privacy and just sort of getting, like, sometimes guys need to take the man cave, right? Pretty much all guys need to withdraw and man cave at some point. So the more you can align with that, the better. Now, I'm not saying that there shouldn't be some communication about that or some negotiation, right? Like, not every weekend is the best weekend for him to go in the man cave. And as partners, maybe we get to influence that. But the more you can align with that, the easier your life's going to be, because then you don't have to fear. It's like he's actually getting some of the things that he needs. If you think of the main dynamic of the masculine, action and rest, then that rest is often renewal on my own, right? A lot of guys aren't going to get that renewal from hanging out with their families, right? Or being in a group. They actually just need to empty on their own. So however that looks in his life, maybe there's a way that you guys can co-create that reality better. Monica says, Jack, I've noticed some guys write looking for long-term relationship on online profiles, but once they show for date, they act opposite. Is this a common phenomenon, using long-term relationship as bait? I honestly don't know. What it might be is that my desire for long-term relationship is going to be very specific to one or a few people. Right. So sometimes, even if this feels a bit personal, it's like you want the guy that wants long-term relationship in your direction. And the vast majority of guys you meet won't be that. And you won't be that for them. So, yeah, I think it's a little bit of an instant qualification. And maybe there's a way that you can include like a pre-date. Perhaps you get on the phone for 15 minutes, even 10, and you can ask some questions that might flush this out. Right. So, hi, I noticed you're asking about interested in long-term relationship. What does that mean to you? Have you been in one? Like maybe you can cut to the chase. Maybe you can even include a little bit of vulnerability. Hey, like, I'm not wanting to kind of quiz you too much. I just notice there are some guys that put long-term relationship on their profile, but in person they want anything but that. And that feels like a little bit of a waste of my time. So maybe I can ask a couple of questions. Mary Kay, hiya Jack, is it possible to enjoy being single too much? Lately, I seem to be prioritizing other things over chatting with people online. Conflicts with my desire to meet someone. Yeah, I mean, some of us get comfortable, right? We get comfortable being in our own space and on our own time. I would probably just encourage a both and. I mean, I think high quality time with self is an absolute gift, it's precious, and it's undervalued at large by culture. That's my experience. I'm a little bit of a hermit, so I may be a little bit more up that end of the spectrum. And if you want to meet someone, they're not going to just kind of be under the sofa, right? So you've got to get out there. So maybe it's just each to their own. Maybe the more fully you can explore being on your own, the more fully you can also invite kind of getting out there and connecting. I think what you're talking about is engagement with life. Like, engagement means I engage on what I care about, right? And so I might care about time alone. I might also care about going out and making connections. So again, if you haven't, I'd look at point 9 on the Enneagram, right? Because the vice of 9 is this sort of disengagement. Like, there's things I want to do in my life, but I'm sort of sat on the sofa eating burritos, or not burritos, Doritos. Sorry, I'm kind of like, I have dreams and fantasies, things I want to do, but I'm actually not really engaged in them in my life. So if that's going on, that will be a useful resource for you. Okay, what have we got? Oh, thanks. Some people have been putting their types in here. Knit and Paint says, you're helping me so much. I appreciate that. What to do with a coworker I like? I know he's interested, but one day he's keen and forward, and other times he is cold and distant. Got it. So you haven't got clean energy coming towards you. So again, probabilistically, hot and cold guy doesn't generally become your guy. Your guy generally will have a bit of a cleaner and clearer energy towards you. So just kind of know that. I would be playful and just kind of, maybe name it at some point. Like, I like you and I'd like to get to know you more, and I don't really know if that's true for you. What's true for you? Like, it's sort of like, if in doubt, you go for authenticity, right? You could get a little hurt, you could feel a bit rejected, but hearts want to be authentic, right? Hearts want to be expressed in their truth, right? That is the truth of the heart, is what's authentic and real for me right now. It doesn't have to be true for you. I'm a little curious about you. I'd love to go for a drink with you. Would you like that? Just ask, and it may be that actually he's not. And so he's not actually been tracking whether he's kind of open to you or distant to you, but at least you can kind of find that out. What I wouldn't do is sit on that for months and years. I've seen these situations where someone's like, I've known a coworker for years and I never know if he's interested in me. And I would kind of get it out there, because I've wasted time in my life like that. And then I've had the conversation and it hasn't even been a conversation for them. And then it's like, wow, I've just given all this heart space, head space for nada, So let's get to reality. INTJ in the house. Awesome. ENFJ and type 1. Welcome. Like that. Why do I, a romantic idealist, keep attracting guys who have given up on love, think relationships aren't worth it, are super cynical, etc.? Because opposites attract, right? So I know this is just, I'm throwing this out there. I don't know, but my intuition is anytime that you're an idealist, you tend to attract some people that are going to help ground you, right? So you sometimes see this in couples, right? One of them's the idealist, one of them's the realist, right? One of them's always talking about the car that they could buy, and the other one is like, this is the car we can afford. So, you know, idealism is great, but idealism can also be its own trance. And I know this as a recovered idealist, right? All idealism and no grounding ain't good. You know, all idealism and no reality. If I can't be with reality, you know, I'm not really with the truth. I'm not really getting with the program. So some ways life might be, you know, your soul is often attracted to the people that it wants to learn the thing that they have access to that you don't yet have access to. So you might be attracting a cynical guy because you're not in touch with your own realist. And when you do that, you might attract a guy that's a little bit more integrated. That would be my curiosity. And you're also an INFJ. Got it. INFJs take the lead. Elizabeth, a guy who's INTJ would message me on Facebook, suggest meeting up, and then would leave my last message unread for a few days while getting online on Facebook. Do you do that too? Just kidding. Sorry, I had that experience. That doesn't sound great. So here, I think, was me reposting this link. I just checked this one. So this should work. So for any of you that were having problems with the link, I apologize. And that's also, I'll leave that up there for you guys on Facebook. Thanks you so much for joining us. I know some of you have been here from the beginning. I super appreciate that. I love doing these. Thanks for being spontaneous and coming on. Thanks for all the likes. Give this a like if you haven't yet liked it. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't. Pop us a question. I'm catching you up. So I'm 13 minutes behind. So I'm catching you up. I appreciate that. But if you've got a question, you haven't got it out, let's get it out, because I will be starting to wrap up after we get through these questions. Jack might be an ENTP, ENFP. You know, it's a long time since I've done this stuff. So what I'll tell you is that when I did it more, and I was in this world a little bit more 10 years ago, I would always come out as either an ENFP, correct, or an ENFJ. So I know I was told I couldn't be an ENFJ, but that's what it was. I think as it happens, I've integrated a lot more of my T since that time. So I get maybe why this would be showing up. I also have integrated a lot more of my I. And the one I really struggle with is my S. I think I'm a way bigger N than S. And that might be true for a while. When I'm chopping vegetables, I'm a little bit more in touch with my S. All right, here we go. A guy I like told me he's bad at relationships and doesn't want to even start it off with me. He's been through 8 relationships in 18 years since his divorce. He's 57. Is he a damaged case? Well, even more whether he's a damaged case or not, I'm hearing that he doesn't want to start a relationship. And I would just pay attention to that. It's so hard to try and persuade a guy to be in a relationship. So much easier to partner with the already always there guy who's, I want a relationship, impersonally to you and also personally to you. I want a relationship. You know, we're all damaged. I'm damaged, right? I'm damaged. We're all damaged. I know there's a degrees of that, right? So I'm not making light of it, but I would be much more into a guy who's in a situation in his life authentically that wants relationship, can show up for relationship, and then let's talk. Cloda, Jack, a lot of guys have told me I come across all sweet and innocent to them. I think this is because I don't get flirty or sexual with them too early. How can I show that I have both sides to me like a normal woman? Yeah, practice. I mean, so what I would do is I would put this in the language of personas, right? So the sweet one, right, or the innocent one, we could say is a persona, right? It might be true to you, and I obviously, I know you a little bit, so I do think you have some of that in your essence, but it can also become a little bit of a safe space, right? I sort of play to that. And so what other personas could we try on, right? People talk about persona parties, where you go to a party and you deliberately try a persona that is not native to you, right? So what would it be? The sexy one, all right? Or the rebellious one, or the mysterious one, right? Or the flirtatious one. How do you practice those? Just try it on. And maybe you can try it on right from the beginning so you don't sort of get stuck in the sweet and then you have to bring in the sexy. Maybe you can just lead with it and see what that's like, right? Yeah, bring in a little bit of the dark side of that energy. Like it can just be really fun to play with that, right? And notice that probably sweet and innocent is safe. And that's fine. It's good to have safety, but that's probably why you do it, because it's gotten certain results in the past. And maybe you're now willing to kind of play more octaves of the piano. All right, Amanda says, is it a deal breaker if the person you're dating hangs out with his ex without you? I'm not a fan of that. Here's what I'm a fan of. Why don't you come hang out with me and my ex, right? Or maybe even right now, I'm not super in touch with my ex. I'm also a fan of that. But I'm a fan of introducing you so that you're in the mix and that you get to bring some influence, right? Most relationships work better when there's a decent level of mutual influence. So if I can't influence your behavior around your ex, we've got a bit of a problem. And if I were coaching guys, what we know is that most relationships work better specifically when both partners receive influence, and even more specifically when men receive influence from women, right? Where they're actually open to being like, okay, cool, I can make that accommodation, or yep, you get to turn the volume down on that a little bit. So I'm a fan of that. I'm not a fan of you being left out of the loop. And I'm curious why that needs to be the case. I'm curious if you've had a conversation and say, hey, I would feel a little more comfortable. It doesn't have to be long. Could we just kind of get together as a three or be part of a bigger group? And if that's really always a no, I've got to be curious. Like if I was coaching that guy, I'm like, why are you a no to that? Like your partner is here, right? It's not your ex. This is your priority. This is your secure attachment, ideally, right? This shows up first. That's how I understand that. Can an avoidant attachment guy become and stay present, not shut down? Sure. Yeah. You know, there's great gifts in the avoidant structure, right? Self-reliance, self-initiative, self-soothing, right? So any of us can learn from the gifts of the avoidant structure. So I don't just hold that because you're avoidant, you're shut down. It might just be, that might be your specific experience of this person. So I get that. But, you know, I'm avoidant, I turn to myself first. So, you know, can I stay present? Sure. Do you mean by present, like, is there a certain way I can show up in the relationship and perhaps give it more attention? That might be my edge. It's going to be much easier if I know I'm an avoidant and I want to do that practice, and I want to do that practice with you. Are you an ISTP? I appreciate that, honey. That's funny. This is my inverse, probably, right? ISTP. Thank you. Jack, you're the best coach out there. Thank you for sharing your gifts and time. You're super welcome. I think Jack is ISTJ. I like this. You know what I mean? To the one back then, this ISTJ stuff, this would have been progress. So I like that. I dated a guy and we've been intimate for a few months, but after a while we turned into best friends. I just didn't ask or say anything as I'm scared of rejection. I still had feelings for him. Yeah, I got it. Might be time for you to downshift that connection so that you can invite into your life what it is that you actually want. It's okay to be scared of rejection. Rejection can be scary. It's also a great place to practice, right? The more I can free myself of that fear, the more power I have and the more realness I have, you know? So, I mean, at least the connection is downshifted, so you've already got some clarity about where he's at. And if you still have feelings for him, it's hard to keep someone as a friend or a best friend that you've got feelings for, right? That's just, it's tricky. I totally get it. It's really hard, but you might have to let that go in order that you can either have him see, oh, actually, when you step away, I realize I've been telling myself I want to best these friends, but actually I want more, right? There are guys that wake up. And if that's not happening, you actually then create the space for someone that you don't need to be scared of rejection in quite the same way because they actually want more than best friends with you. If the person you're dating for a few months won't acknowledge you in any way on social media, like won't post pics or tag you, but does with other, is that a red flag? Yeah, I think so. I mean, I would approach that as a conversation. I would get their world around it, in case there's anything that you aren't seeing there. But yeah, I'd definitely be curious about that, particularly if they're willing to do that with other people. You know, it's quite vulnerable sometimes for a guy. Like, so there's a sort of sinister side of this, right? Which is like, I don't actually want to make our relationship public because maybe I still have feelings for someone, or there's someone else I'm interested in, or I'm not taking it that seriously. And there's also sometimes the vulnerability side of like, yeah, maybe it feels like a big deal to kind of introduce you to the world, right? And actually, I am into this, but I'm just not quite there yet, right? Like, I'm not ready to like introduce you to my parents. Like, that might be a similar sort of step. So I think get someone's world around that, because conversely, sometimes having you introduced to my parents doesn't mean much in my world. Like, it's like, I've done it to plenty of people over the years, and I wasn't even interested in them romantically. Maybe they were just a good friend of mine, or a friend that I was casual with, right? So it's always good to minimum assumption and to understand what it is that people mean. Okay, Mika, hello, how do we get private coaching? So at the moment, I'm only making private coaching available to people who are in my Real Relationship program, right? Because it means that we've actually got a firmer basis to work together. And I'm also going to be taking some time off over the summer. So if you want to be first in line with that, I would enroll in my Real Relationship program. And I'm trying to think of the best way that you can do that is by going to my free webinar called Say Hello to Mr. Right. And If you register there, it will give you the opportunity to join my waitlist, right? Because I will reopen enrollment at some time soon. So that's the best way to do it with me right now. I'm just doing that because I get a lot of requests for coaching, and I'm doing more teaching these days, so I actually have less availability for coaching. And I like to do it where we've got a lot of shared reality, and you're already in my world and I'm already in your world to some extent. So that's why I do it for people who come through my program. All right. Check that out if you want to check that out. I appreciate that. Thanks, Jack. Right timing, right season. And thank you for supporting the channel. If you're on YouTube right now and you want to support the channel, you can do this. You can send any amount from $1 upwards through Super Chat. Supports the channel. I super appreciate that. If you're watching this after the event, then you can go to paypal.com/realjackbutler and you can make a donation to the channel. I'm just putting that link down now. I'm going to pop that up on the screen. And that's something you can do anytime. And by the way, some of you have done this and I super appreciate it. It's a really nice way to exchange value. If you've gotten value from this channel, even if it's just a super small contribution, I really appreciate it. And it supports me to keep doing more of this kind of work. So thank you. Kathy says, I want to make male friends, but they all want to have physical relationship. I'm waiting for man. I'm more attracted to you than just a friend. Yeah, totally. And by the way, my advice would be possibly to maybe consider, do you want to make male friends? Sometimes if we can really focus on our female friendships, we kind of have this unique space open for male masculine energy. And it's actually more likely to magnetize in what it is that we're looking for. That's the thing that I found. It's not right for everyone, you know you, but that's something I would get curious about, particularly if I'm attracting a lot of friends that is friend zone. Why don't we just nix that and have, if you're a guy in my life, it's because there's going to be romantic attraction. That's actually the game I'm in right now. If I find my partner and then I want to introduce more male friends, I can do that. But most people, it's actually less of a desire once they've got that relationship in place. So what does that mean? It means that some of that energy is kind of bleeding into those friendships right now that could be made available perhaps for the whole enchilada. All right, thanks. I know a few of you have just joined us recently. Welcome. I'm here live. We are going to be wrapping up here in the next maybe 20 minutes. So if you've got a question, now would be the time to get it in. Give the video a like, subscribe to my YouTube channel. By the way, if you're a YouTube person, you've been following me on YouTube for a long time, come over and check me out over on Facebook, which is facebook.com/realjackbutler, because sometimes I do posts and lives that are just over there on Facebook. And so I don't want you to miss out on those. And it's a different way to stay engaged. Also, if you're on Facebook, you'll get access to my Instagram posts and stories because all of those get repurposed there. So it's a good place. It's actually Facebook that pulls in everything because I post every YouTube video link there and I post everything that comes on Instagram. So facebook.com/realjackbutler. Check me out. And if you like the page, then you'll get notified and you'll hear of everything. And I think we're just shy of 5,000 likes. So maybe you can help me. We can get that. We can push over the 5,000 mark. All right. Helena says, Rhonda Helene says, thank you so much. Hannah says, thank you, Jack. Love your advice. K Meerkat says, private coaching. Yes, I think I answered that. Just that I do private coaching for a few select people, and I do it for people that are in my program because that means that we have a great starting point for coaching. Jack, is your current relationship kind of opposite attract dynamic? I would say both and, right? So whilst I think it's true that opposites attract, and I have some of that, right? Where maybe perhaps like I'm a little bit more in the mental plane sometimes, and my partner's a little bit more in the emotional plane, and I appreciate that. I also think similarity is a really good basis for relating as well, right? So it's a little bit of a dance there. Because similarity often comes down to things like worldview and values, right? So if our values are opposite, I mean, hey, what's one way of thinking about what's going on in the world right now, right? Is that there's a real values clash happening, right? There's a values clash happening between more progressive and postmodern values and some more traditional values. It's really hard to be in relationship if those values are clashing all the time. So some of the advantages of similarity is that we might like some of the same things. We might look at certain things similarly so that we are naturally kind of resonating. I think that's particularly important if you want to have a longer term relationship or, have children or any of those things. We've got to have this minimum effective dose of things that are in common. So I think it's both. And if it's only opposites, sometimes I don't think those relationships are as likely to go the distance. right? Or that just we're likely to find some kind of common ground, you know? There's also archetypical expression, right? So if your archetype is, let's say, warrior, you might appreciate really having a warrior guy because it's an energy that you get and it kind of invites your energy, and you can also relax some of your energy because he's kind of holding it down, right? There's different archetypes we call scholar, priest, artisan. So sometimes being with someone that has a similar kind of energy, it almost allows you to feel more polarity with the guy because you're kind of already on a similar sort of page. And that might seem a little bit hard to grasp if you haven't been much in archetypical energies. But if I see situations where, for example, we've got a woman whose native energy is more warrior, and with a guy that has, let's say, like an artisanal energy, which is much more free flow, spontaneous, creative, that sometimes that's a difficult match because it's almost going to invite her a little bit more into her masculine because he's not holding any of that warrior stuff down, right? Whereas with a warrior guy would, then she gets to relax more. So that's where I think similarity can be powerful as well. All right, Vanessa says, hi, Jack. Is that true that men have post-breakup feelings and start missing the person, like start grieving after breakup? Could you explain how does that work, please? Yeah, if you've had a meaningful connection with a guy, particularly if you're the one that's downshifted the connection, right? So let's say you've noticed he's hot and cold, or that he's breadcrumbing, or that, you know, he's never going to make you his girlfriend, or he's never going to make you his partner. But if you've had a connection, most guys don't want that to go away, right? That's why they hit you up sometimes on a weekend, or they hit you up late at night because they still feel the connection. You know, all connection, no commitment, certainly to the immature masculine is what you go for. Wow, if I can have connection, maybe even connection in a few different places, but I don't have to make any commitment, put anything on the line, that's kind of easy for me as a guy, right? Harder is to actually show up and stay committed or want to make a commitment. So yeah, I think post-breakup, guys have all sorts of feelings that could range from anything that you'd experience through to actually it wasn't too much of a big deal. And so it's not even a big deal when I reach out because I haven't had to grieve anything because it never showed up for me that way, right? That's where you can sometimes get this asymmetry. It was more to you than it was to him. That could also be the other way around. But if it's more to you than it was to him, he's hitting you up and he's kind of, hey, babe, how's it going? Just checking in. I'm super cash over here. Whereas you're like, I'm heartbroken. I don't want to just hear from you out of the blue because it brings up all those feelings, right? So here's what I distinguish. The fact that I'm hitting you up doesn't mean I'm ready for a substantive relationship, right? That's the distinction. A guy wanting connection, of course, it's a core human need. And all guys that are attracted to women want attention from women, right? Whether they're ready to settle down or they're just, I want no commitments at all, or I'm just looking for sex. It's like, that's a form of connection, right? So all of that stuff is in there. It just, I see that they can get storified in the feminine, right? He misses me. Oh, so he must want to get back with me. No, let's sever those two. If he wants to get back with you, he comes and says, hey, I'm really sorry I let this go. I made a mistake. I want to get back with you, right? He can be explicit, right? So if he's not, if you start to reconnect and maybe you're even intimate again, and he's not making any of those declarations, do not assume that because he's reconnected with you and missed you, that now second time around something's different, right? It has to be articulated and made form through his actions. Autumn says, can you talk more about emotionally available, unavailable men? Insane connection, so intellectual, and he asked for space. I gave it through no contact. It's been a month. I think he's ghosted me. Yeah. The first thing to say about emotionally unavailable, God, I coined this phrase and I'm struggling to say it today. Emotionally available, unavailable men. I know about it because I was one. That's where I learned about it. That's why I talk about it, because I try and help people not fall into the trap of thinking that this guy's more available than he was. It doesn't necessarily have to be sinister. Doesn't necessarily have to be this is a bad guy. It's just he may not have differentiated that his heart availability is the same thing as I'm actually available for a relationship. He might be available for a connection, a lovership. He might even be available to make you his girlfriend, but he's not really available for like, let's do this. I'm in serious partnership kind of relationship. So he's confusing because he may have offered you more at a heart and emotional level than any other guy has. He may have connected with you more deeply. He may be able to read you. He maybe cares about your emotions. He can hold you in certain places. He's an emotionally literate guy often, right? Often he's a feeler guy who kind of gets it. And you've been wanting that kind of guy, but you want that kind of guy backed up with, I have the integrity in my masculine to know that I can stand by some kind of commitment to you, that I can create some kind of container. Even then, who knows whether it's ultimately going to work out, but it's not like I just have to keep in this casual, uncommitted thing. I can actually step into some kind of commitment. Now, if that guy's confusing to you, I get it. I think I was often really confusing to people in the past because I wanted to connect, but I wasn't actually available for, let's do something more serious. And so, what do you do with that? You have to see it for what it is, right? You could just say, cool, this is a lovership, and I'm going to enjoy the fact that I get to go deep with this guy, and we can be emotionally literate together, and we can go into territory perhaps I haven't been in with a guy. But for a lot of you realize when you do that, you're going to start to develop the kind of feelings where you don't just want a lovership, right? So lovership is difficult. Lovership to partnership upgrade is super hard. It's rare. So sometimes you can be like, yeah, I get it. Like I'm at a stage of my life where, the equivalent of a summer romance, it works for me. And sometimes it doesn't, because if I've been holding out for a partner and now I've got summer romance, it fills some buckets, but actually I start to want more, and it's ultimately a recipe for a little bit of pain. So, it's not your job to coach a guy into being available. It's your job to discern when a guy is or isn't. And when he isn't, buyer beware, right? Know what you're getting into. And know what you're getting into before your feelings start to run the show. That was a good question. I appreciate that. Jack, have you ever coached men because you're brilliant? Many men would benefit from expanding their authentic communication skills with women. Yes, I have coached men, and I do imagine in the fullness of time that I will be doing more of that. It hasn't been my primary focus recently, as you know. My focus has been working with women, but I do like coaching men when I get the opportunity, and I do feel like there's going to be a ton of good stuff to help bring into the world there. Yeah, because I realize I'm sometimes on this side of the conversation, and there's another side to that conversation as well. So yeah, thanks for pointing that out. Watch that space. Wendy Ann, in the Enneagram, I shift from 3 to 6 to 9 with different sub-wings, loaned out my Rousseau Enneagram book, still miss it. Yeah. Russ Hudson is great. He's one of the people I learned Enneagram with, so I appreciate that you've got that book. And yeah, we do. The Enneagram is a dynamic system. That's whole of it. We might have a dominant type, and if you are studying the Enneagram, know what your dominant type is, because it's the one that will most wake you up. And at the same time, yeah, we're ultimately trying to integrate all those energies because they're all probably in us, right? ISFP, awesome. Thank you so much. When a man tells you he thinks he is, believe him. Yeah, I like that. Where is Cynthia? How do I communicate that I'm not really into coffee dates without coming across as entitled? Dinner dates or fun activities seem to be infinitely more successful than a drive-by. Yeah, I mean, I think if you can own the humility in your own experience, then it will just come across that way, right? So it's like, sometimes we fear coming across a certain thing. I would much more that we feared, are we a certain thing, right? Like if I'm actually entitled, fine. Like maybe that's your own work to do on that, rather than sort of fearing how you come across to the other person. And you could also just say, hey, I love that suggestion, and here's my experience, right? My experience is I do better with dinner dates. Would you be open to that? If the guy's into it enough, I'm sure he's like, great, yeah, let's do dinner. Or perhaps you can even set it up and say, maybe we can go for coffee, and if we're liking it, we can extend it into a longer lunch, right? So then perhaps there's a bit of a both and there, but I wouldn't worry too much about how you come across. I'd worry about what's actually authentically real and kind of what's happening. And you've got some data, and that seems like interesting data to be able to share with a guy. How to know the influence more? Any quick tips, Jax? Can you restate that? I'm not quite sure I understand that question. You're talking about how to influence a partner? Jack, does a man feel less secure when the woman he's dating is funnier than him? I'm a really funny person. I haven't dated a guy funnier than me. Well, that sounds like a nice problem to have. I mean, what we know, right, when they've done these kind of lists of like, here's what men find most attractive and here's what women find most attractive. We do know that humor tends to show up higher on things that women want in men than it does on men want in women. Here's my question for you is, are there any ways that you play to your humor that actually stops a deepening of something else, right? Because a lot of us, particularly we have this more disarming style of defense, right? We can use humor a lot, and it actually keeps a kind of a floor on how deep we can go. So that would be my question back to you is, are there any other sides of you? Like, great, you're hilarious. That's awesome. I love humor. I super appreciate that. I appreciate that in friends. I appreciate that in anyone. But if that's kind of becoming the dominant tone, right, is it's like you're always just kind of cracking jokes, maybe you need a guy that's super kind of witty, and that's just basically the basis of the connection, although it sounds like you haven't found that. But I'm curious, do I also get access to your sweetness, your sensitivity, your softness, your attunement, your sexuality? Like, are all those things also in the mix? I've been in groups before where like the person leading the group has eventually called someone because the only thing they bring to the group is their humor, and it's actually blocking what's real, right? So we can all have a jester persona, and we can also just be natively intelligent and witty. That's great. That would just be my direction of curiosity. Let me know if you want to come back on that. Josephine, second live chat. Well, thanks for coming back. I appreciate that. Jack, I had an intimate relationship with this guy, and now he wants to be a close friend. I really love him. Should I just walk away? That's, again, yes. Wow, we've had a lot of this today. This is common territory. It's really hard. I don't think you should stay friends with a guy if you want more with him, because it's kind of like an untrue friendship, right? If I really always want more, I can still hold you in my heart as someone I appreciate so much, but I'm kind of just baking pain into the equation. That's how I see that. And if you know that you want a relationship and he's not going to give that, you want a relationship elsewhere. And over time, those feelings might change, right? We've all had people that we've had really intense feelings for in the past. In the fullness of time, it's kind of run its course. Maybe some of those feelings have gone away completely, or at least that they've diminished. So I would let him know what you're doing, right? I love you. I would want to be in a relationship with you. That's not available. I don't think I can do the friend thing because it doesn't feel sincere to me. And until such point that I can be a genuine friend, I think I might have to downshift contact. That's the essence of what I would be communicating in that kind of situation. Again, if you want to support the channel or make a donation, it's paypal.com/realjackbutler. Thank you for all of you who have supported my work. I super appreciate it. I love that I get to do this style of work. Ruby says, hello, welcome. Sarah, how do I work on myself to be a stronger, happier person? Yeah. So, yeah, it's a big question. I often talk about the piano, right? That we are these. I grew up playing the piano. I don't play it particularly well, but I sort of, in theory, I know how to play it. So piano has 8 octaves, right? And sometimes we get a bit habituated to certain frequencies. Like we can play those dark, deeper notes, right? Our sadness is obvious, or our melancholy, but we don't really know ourselves as a joyful, happy person. So how, expanding that range, just acknowledging that all of that is to be human, right? Even if there's something that feels more familiar from the past. I would explore the Enneagram if you haven't, because there are certain types that get fixated into certain experiences. Like, for example, at point 4, type 4 in the Enneagram, we're going to be very aware of our melancholy because our habitual focus is what's missing, right? If I'm always focused on what's missing, how am I going to be a stronger, happier person? I would notice that, there are any people that you can model. There are any people to you that are examples of this strength and happiness, and you want to connect with that more. There can be really simple things, right? Like sometimes I'm happier if I just spend more time in nature, spend more time barefoot, spend less time in front of a screen, have more connection with people. Just sort of notice, take that personal inventory of what has you feel happier and more connected to yourself, And they're all gifts, right? Happiness and sadness, both gifts. Strength and vulnerability, and even weakness, both gifts. So you don't have to be down on the parts of you that aren't strong and happy. It might just be that you want to energize them a little bit more. I feel like when you get used to breadcrumbs, it's hard to know if you're acting doormatty when someone does the basics. Yeah, I get that. Totally. I might just be getting some reality check from a therapist or a good friend or a coach, right? Someone where you can just explain the situation and they can perhaps help you navigate it a little bit. But I think the right guy is going to want to be in touch with you meaningfully 2 to 3 plus times a week. So that's just a little standard that you can check it against. The other thing you can do is go to, I'll just put this now in the comments, go to becomingtheone.us/guy-checklist. Let me see if I can just pop this up on the screen. Because that is where I've got my He's Your Guy checklist. So if you're struggling to work out, is this guy really showing up for me? Kind of let me do the lifting. I've done it there. It's going to only take 15 minutes of your time. For those of you that like that, there's also a course. You can get the expanded version that is paid, but this is free. Go and check that out. I said 2 to 3 times a week meaningfully, right? But by meaningfully, I mean we're in person or we're on the phone or a call together. There might be contexts where that's not true. Like if, he works offshore or, but I'm giving you general ideas, right? If you don't see each other for 2 weeks, he's not making a play for you. That's how I see it, right? He's not really having to work to show up. And generally when a guy's like that, he's treating you casually. I feel so many men are players. Is it true that lots of men are players? That's probably true. Is it true that lots of men aren't? That's also true. So I wouldn't get too fixated on the sort of the generalization of men, I would just really focus on the kind of men that you want. If that's a high presence man, if that's a connected guy, that's a guy that's clear what he wants. There are plenty of those out there, and you only one away. Hi, Jack. Thank you for being on here. Guys love bombing me in. It's so annoying. Can I tell him or just ignore it? I would go no contact. Yeah, because otherwise, love bombing can be some really compelling behavior. It can be hard to resist. So I would actually stop it coming into my field. Nancy says, am I too old? I've been a widow for 13 years. I'm living in a new neighborhood. Some of my neighbors have commented in a negative way about their parents in their 80s. They clearly do not realize that I'm 83. I'm still active, shapely. People seem to find me interesting. A few years ago online, I routinely took 10 years off my age. I would like a friend and lover to be with the rest of my life. Awesome. Have at it. Totally. I mean, I will say this, I've been inviting people, if you're interested, to take this Becoming the One trial. And we have a lot of people in the Becoming One community in their 70s and 80s, and they're some of the most active people. So I totally get it. Yeah, own it. Own where you're at. Own what you want. The naysayers will say what they'll say, right? If I've had the experience, perhaps say through parents that 80, I've experienced it as really old because at that stage my parents weren't vibrant and active in the way that you were. Cool, that's me, that's my experience. But you're you and you're having your experience, and I think that's awesome. And I salute you, and I want that to happen for you, and I'm sure that it can. For long distance relationships, says Milo, what's the typical length of time before expecting a marriage proposal from a man? From the time you meet online or the first time you meet in person? So I'm not a fan of this, right? I'm not a fan of we don't really know each other and somehow marriage is on the table. No, I think we need to get to know each other. So if you're a guy and you really want to put anything like that, I mean, the fact that you've put that on the table early, that for me is a red flag, right, personally. But if you want to prove to me that there's something here worth pursuing, then you've got to go figure out how to come spend some time with me, right? Now, if that means, I don't know, you've got to, take some long weekends and fly to my country, right? Or you're going to fly me to where you live or whatever. If a guy hasn't the resourcefulness to figure that out, I don't think he has any business putting marriage on the table. That's my view on that. Will a guy get intimidated if you set firm boundaries? Only the wrong guy. Yeah, I mean, so my view of boundaries, right? I'm not a biologist, but is the sort of cellular view, right? Selective permeability. Fancy phrase, just basically means the cell wants to let the right things in and keep the wrong things out. So in boundaries work, sometimes people want to have strong boundaries, firm boundaries. Better than that, in my experience, is selective permeability, right? I want to be strong and weak. I want to let the right things in and open when I know to open and close when I need to close. So just make sure that if you're doing firm boundaries, it's not some substitute that's just keeping you safe because you're actually just keeping everyone kind of over there, that there's a kind of detachedness and an invulnerability. Sometimes the people that have the strongest boundaries, usually they have them for a reason. And if you dig into it, it's because they had some bad experiences. And part of them decided, I'm never going to be vulnerable about that again, right? Some of the strongest boundaries are people who got bullied in school. And I don't blame them, right? Like that's a terrible experience, but we don't want that some experience in the past has now decided that we're going to set things up in a way that we don't actually get the nutrition, the love, the support, the receiving, the acceptance, right? For a lot of you, the main dynamic of your life that's really going to fulfill you is giving and receiving love, right? That is one of the ways of talking about the feminine essence, is that's the most important thing for me, is giving and receiving love. So yeah, just that's my curiosity. And if a guy can't be with, I would say, real boundaries and authentic boundaries is where I set the tone, maybe the more than firm boundaries. Because if I need to have a really firm boundary with you, are you my guy? Like, why do I need to have that with you? Like, maybe I can just have an appropriate boundary. Maybe I can just have good boundaries, right? But yeah, if a guy can't be with your authentic boundaries over the longer term, probably not your guy. Hallelujah, Jack. Great wisdom. I appreciate that. Jack, how to act around a man who took my virginity but never committed to me in spite of his promise? Maybe let him go. I mean, I'm curious who this guy is to you now, right? Are you still in some kind of romantic relationship? But if a guy has been breaking those sort of promises to you, I think that's going to be hard to relax into a relationship. So either you guys need to have some kind of clear up, right? Where you kind of excavate the stuff and maybe you look for an apology, or you get some forgiveness, or you work with a therapist or someone that can help you through it, or possibly maybe this just isn't your person, right? Because sounds like there's been some broken promise here. So yeah, I wouldn't be afraid of holding your authentic boundary there. Do men respond to the boundaries you set? This guy left me on read for 2 weeks and then resurfaced. I politely informed him someone who treats me as an afterthought will not enjoy my company. Got it, fair enough. Yeah, I mean, here's my curiosity for you. It sounds like this stuff may be like it's easy for you to feel disrespected or something like that, that would be the territory I'd encourage you to look into. So when you can get to the point where you're just like, hey, I'm a no, rather than I necessarily have to even like kind of justify it, or like that might be the real strength and value in this for you. That would be my curiosity. But also I like that you're taking your stand. I really love that, and that you're being clear. That's awesome. Here's the checklist if you haven't. Scrolly McScrolly. How do I deal with a guy's insecurities, comfortable to commit to a normal girl, but not able to commit to a glamorous girl like me? And I know the attraction is strong. I mean, we all have insecurities, right? So permission to be human. I don't think you're responsible for a guy's insecurities. My question to you, given that you're here, would be, what happens for you when you experience him being insecure, right? Do you have a judgment on that? Do you get strong? Do you collapse? Do you collude? Like, what's happening there? It may also be, like, I'm curious in this language, commit to a normal girl, but not to a glamorous girl. Like, I'm curious about that. Like, maybe there's something in here for you around superiority and inferiority. And that superior inferior tends to be one of the things that plays into insecurity, right? Most people are insecure because they don't have a right to be themselves, right? If I have a right to be myself with all my frailties, all my limitations, all my attractiveness, all my unattractiveness, that tends to be when I'm a little bit more secure. So I don't know what you need to deal with there, unless you're saying there's a level of insecurity that just doesn't work for me, right? And you get your choice. But I'm also curious whether this guy is really in his masculine essence around you, because I think when a guy is, he doesn't tend to get intimidated by beauty or strength or wisdom or any of those virtues. So curious if this is actually your guy. The 2 to 3 times a week was for you to be connecting real time, right? So if a guy can't show up for 2 to 3 dates or calls a week, yeah, then we start to say, is he really investing? Now, he might be a very introverted guy. He might be very shy. There might be some reason to that. But also, he's got to learn that that's really, if we're going to be in a partnership where we kind of influence each other and have some shared realities together, we probably need to be spending that sort of time together. Jackie, I'll watch this latest talk this weekend on my downtime. Can't wait. Jack Butler's a fascinating man. He's given me so much to appreciate. Thanks. I really appreciate that. I'm also a pretty simple guy at the end of the day, but I love that. Thank you. Thank you for reflecting that. Brooke says, how do I deal with guys' insecurity? He's comfortable to commit to a low maintenance girl, but not able to commit to a glamorous girl like me. And I know the attraction is strong. Got it. I think I just answered this, So it's not the nicest phrase, but I coined this phrase middle maintenance, right? As a way of saying, which woman does the guy tend to end up with, right? It's not the one that's low maintenance, but it's also not the one that's high maintenance, right? It's the one that actually has an appropriate relationship with expressing their needs and also giving him space. So again, if we're using this as our own work, like, what's our relationship with that in us? And if this guy's insecurity doesn't work for you, yeah, maybe you have your answer. I'm almost curious, like, it feels like you're being maybe a little hard on his insecurities, and I get it. Like, we appreciate confident men, and him sort of melting into a puddle might not be attractive to you, but maybe there's a kind of different guy that therefore is a better partner to you. Jack, thank you. Seriously, I'll press into self-love and healing and move on. Great advice. Awesome. What if he forgets about that he asked me out on a date and then eagerly asks me when I'm free to go out with him? If you care so much, how would you forget in the first place? Yeah, you probably have your answer there, right? If I'm really keen to take you on a date, I'm probably not going to forget that. So maybe he's treating you a bit casual. Maybe he's not your guy. What is the best way to love a man who has a large company to run that demands so much of his time? So this is a common question, right? Where you're drawn to like a driven man or an ambitious man or a super hardworking man, right? So one thing is you can appreciate the virtues of that, right? There's something that's virtuous about taking the responsibility and having the initiative to run a large company, right? And then you also have to get sober about, is the guy available for relationship, right? Because, kings, presidents of countries, CEOs, some of them also have successful relationships because they're also able to put time on that, even if they're working really hard. So I'm curious whether you feel that is the case with him, right? Whether he's actually available. Maybe a different question here is, how does a guy who's really busy and runs a large company love you? Do you feel loved? Do you feel appreciated? And then you also get to have your choice, right? For some people, it doesn't work that great to have a guy who's like, yeah, you might not hear from me all week, really, because I'm just going to be back-to-back in meetings. So I think it's about having an honest dialogue. I think it's about setting up rituals of connection. I think it's about having shared agreements, right? About how are we going to be in touch? Like, is it okay on a really busy day that you don't hear from him? You know, those kinds of things. And then I would be emphasizing your feminine, right? I mean, in gross orienting generalization, guys running companies in today's world are still in a somewhat more masculine world, and probably in their masculine when they do that. So what's not that, right? It's feminine seduction. It's your sanctuary. It's helping him relax, helping him switch off. It's helping him empty. It's sort of the opposite of the agency, right? The activity. It's more like the receptivity. That's the energy that I would be cultivating, you know? I know, just speaking personally, at times where I've been incredibly busy, that's the energy that I most appreciate, right? It's something else on my to-do list. It's like we almost go into a different domain where I'm not aware of time. I'm not aware of what I've got to do in my life, because you and I are here in this moment, connected, intimate, present, loving. How do I deal? Oh, it's insecurity again. Ladies, love you every day, every moment, every time it will get better. I appreciate that. Central brunette. There's another guy that I want to go out with, but he says when a house he's selling closes, he will take me somewhere. Thoughts? He texts me about every 2 weeks. Yeah, he's not really available right now to be in a sort of more meaningful connection. I think you have your choice, right? You can either be like, hey, stop hitting me up. Like, I'd love to hear from you if you're actually available for, you know, some real connection, like you've actually got availability, and that's fine. You're busy right now, you don't. I'm not going to try and persuade you otherwise, but maybe I don't really need this kind of every 2 weeks, or you're just happy to keep it as a low burn connection until something's possible, or until you decide to end it. So I think you're seeing it kind of clearly. Sometimes there's nowhere to go now, right? And it's either something will shift in the future or it won't. Do you think having common interests or ideology or life beliefs helps with the bond? Yes, I do. Absolutely. I think worldview, which is my way of talking to that, is a good predictor of supporting a relationship. I think it's really hard when you have, you know, like say someone is like from a very traditional perspective, right, where it's very much right and wrong. It's very much by the book, which would be, you know, the Bible or an equivalent book in a religion. Where tradition is really venerated, there's a right way of doing things. That's very different than the context that a lot of people tuning in now find themselves in, where we're much more self-authoring. I'm not necessarily looking to one place as the authority for my life. You know, politically, if we have very different views, that can be challenging. That's going to be really challenging right now. There are successful couples where it's like, yeah, she's a conservative and he's a liberal, and they figured it out and they respect, but you have to have that, like, I respect you even though we don't think and feel the same thing. But for most people, that's tricky, and it's better to be closer in the alignment. And there's also a lot of data to show that religious women are some of the most happy people in their marriages, if you believe the self-reported studies of those things. And I think one of the reasons that might be true is just because there's a very shared container and context that the relationship's held in, and there's like a third point to the relationship, the divine, that's holding people there. So if that's not your context, fine, just find some things that can anchor the relationship. I think that's I think it's really useful, because a lot of us, you know, particularly as work becomes not tied to location, right? We're now living in communities we didn't grow up in. The extended family is less the support system. It's like we're actually relatively untethered in relationship, or we're putting more pressure on the psychological tribe of relationship than we were, you know, in the age of our grandparents and great-grandparents, right? Who probabilistically, most of them grew up in a community that they then lived in and married in and raised families in. They weren't, you know, connecting real time on the other side of the world. They weren't probably aware of what was going on the other side of the world. So we have the gifts of technology and globalism and globalization, and obviously there are cons to those things as well. But I think we need to look for ways to make sure that we're not putting too much pressure on our relationships, like it's the only site that we get kind of connection or support. Thanks, Jack. He's still trying to have sex with me, but he won't commit. I don't want him to see him anymore, but I'm brokenhearted. Yeah, got it. Sounds like you have your clarity, even if that's a painful realization. I wish you strength and holding in that. Hi, Jack. Love the live chat. Any ideas for dealing with a guy who was keen before COVID and now messages every day, but only briefly about superficial things? Yeah, maybe let it go. I mean, that's a little bit on the strong end, but you know, if he's still interested, he's still interested. It's like, it's very hard to persuade a guy to be interested, right? In some ways, it's a bit 0-1. It's either there or it's not. I don't think you need to do something. I think you need to notice the energy that's coming towards you, right? So maybe take some time away. Like maybe if he texts you, don't text back immediately, not as a game, but just because you're not trying to prioritize the connection. You're actually prioritizing attention elsewhere. If he then realizes, oh, actually, I need to put more energy and attention in, he can, but probably he may not. And you have to be with the reality if that's where the connection is. How can I react when a guy acts suddenly cold, like I've done something wrong? I'm always so surprised by such behavior that I don't call him out on this. Yeah, this might actually be your own ability to be with different types of behavior in men, right? Because men are going to be warm and cold, right? Just in the same way that you're going to open and close. So rather than need a guy to be warm with you all the time, even though that's awesome, the reality is he probably won't, right? Any guy, myself included, right? If I'm stressed, I'm going to be more cold with you. If you've caught me at a difficult moment where I'm feeling cognitive overload, I'm probably going to be a bit short or distant with you, right? Now, again, I can learn how to do that better. But that's, I think, the reality with a lot of guys, right? Particularly in their work days, or they're kind of, engaged in something like this sort of single focus, right? And now you're bringing in some input from elsewhere. So what would it be like for you to notice what happens for you when you feel he's cold, right? Maybe you close, or you feel afraid, or you feel abandoned, or you feel like the connection is going to go away. That there might be your work. And that might give you the freedom that actually you can be a little bit, give him a bit more range. You can love it when he's really warm with you, and you can prioritize that, and you can keep supporting the activities that promote that. But then you won't be so shocked, right? Then it's almost like you won't need to be on eggshells, right? It may be good to look into some of the anxious attachment stuff. You might be a little bit over there in his experience sometimes. I'm basically saying, can we differentiate so that he can be authentic to where he is, and you actually get to be where you are, and now we're less codependent. How do I stop financially supporting my boyfriend for 4 years? I felt I owe him because I treated him badly first year relationship and tried to make up for it by being there. Yeah, that is, that's a sophisticated form of blood money, right? In some ways, right? I'm doing it out of a sense of debt or guilt or obligation. I would stop doing it. I would stop doing it. Maybe need to give him notice if this is like literally the way that he supports himself is through you. But give him notice that, a month from now, that's going to change, because actually it doesn't feel good to me anymore. And that I've questioned my motivations for doing this. Then if there's an authentic desire where you're like, yeah, you do have the means and it feels good to you, although most women probably don't want to financially support their guys, but they're in a true partnership, there can be a season, right? There's a season of, maybe he's trying to get a business off the ground, or he's kind of between jobs, or he's been ill, or just you make more money than him and you're happy, but he's still kind of showing up financially. Then that's different, right? If you're like, hey, I want to help you buy that, computer, that's a little different than you are day in, day out supporting on, being supported by me financially. That's probably not going to feel good, particularly if the motivation is wrong. And if you need to get some help, get some help. Like, get a session with someone, either with you individually or with him, where you can actually say, look, there's been something kind of weird about how we're doing this finances thing, and I want to kind of clean it up. Nancy, I'm the 83-year-old. From minutes ago, I really want to know, do I tell my age? I prefer a younger guy than me chronologically. Those my age want generally a nurse or a purse. Yeah, got it. I would just honor your preference. I mean, what I'm hearing is that you're pretty active, so it makes sense to me that you might want a younger guy, just in gross generalization. So do you tell your age? Yeah, I'm a fan of being honest and authentic, and you can just own. I mean, I would maybe speak your age at the same time that you just honor how active you are, right? I mean, I could be 48 and less active than you, right? That's just what it is. So I don't think we want to set that up for a surprise later on. I've had this experience, not even in a relationship, but just in a connection with someone where they lied about their age. And when I found out, it just didn't really feel good. It's sort of like, why couldn't you tell me that? You're already assuming, you're kind of stage managing me, or you're assuming that I'm going to have a certain narrative or story about that. It kind of feels like you don't really trust me and my truth. So I would be a fan of being revealed about that. And if a guy is totally turned off by that, probably not your guy. If an ex comes back, how do I treat him so he doesn't think I will jump back in with no effort on his part, although I do want him back? Yeah, take it super slow. Have no commitments, right? I'm not committing to seeing you next. I'm just each time. And then at the end, if he wants to ask you to see him, I'll think about it. Take your time, think about it. Do you want to get back together? And I'm not saying that as a manipulation. I'm saying that as he's got something to prove, right? That actually this is something is substantively changed. And your best chance of seeing that is not getting all enmeshed up in his grill again. It's slow, detached, observational, scientific. Let me see what's really here. From that place, if you then want to have him, great. But if you don't, now you're not like bonded, and that bonding is talking, right? We want you talking. Jack, one more for you. I have a huge dynamic personality. I feel I always have to shrink for men. I often hide my needs and want to keep people. They still don't say. Any suggestions? Yeah, probably the right guy is going to really enjoy that about you. Also think about that piano, right? So any of us that have huge dynamic personalities, that is one frequency, and we may be habituated to it because it's so true to us or it's so familiar. There probably are other frequencies. Make sure you give them airtime, right? Maybe there's ways that you've even been rewarded in the past. Like, I don't know, like mom or dad wanted you to speak up, or you're always the life and soul of the party, or you've always gotten a lot of attention for that. So there might be some stuff there that you can relax around in yourself, that you don't know yourself only as a huge dynamic personality, right? That you honor the fullness of who you are and how to show up in the moment that's true. If it's true for you to show up in every moment that's huge, maybe that is just true for you. But for a lot of us, there's moments to be huge and there's moments to be, contained, right? Or there's moments to be quiet, or there's moments to listen. So, and I think it's a good qualifier, right? That the right guy, I think, is going to enjoy that in you. And also just look at the space and the oxygen, right? So some guys don't like the experience of you're taking up all the oxygen, right? So can you be huge in a way that also promotes other people's greatness and honors their hugeness and gives them airtime? And I think if that's happening, then I think the right guy will be showing up. How to react when he came back? Is he just checking in to me, or see if I'm still hooked? I don't know. Ask him his intentions. I'm not sure why you've texted me. Why are you texting me? Don't be afraid to just kind of cut to the chase, particularly if it's a guy that has been not clear in his energy before it hasn't worked out. Like, let's not BS each other in some ways, right? Hey, Jack, how do I communicate I'm not into coffee dates? I answered that one. How to react when a guy came back with a small offer, almost too small to accept? Tell him your truth. I'm not sure of the context here. Be authentic to what's real for you. If a guy needs to kind of show up much better than he has in the past, I would just own that. Met him online via common friends. IG admitted he's a womanizer, but says I'm special. He proposed. I do feel that special connection. How do I trust me him? So I think the way that you trust yourself is to actually get good data and experience, right? How can I trust a guy that doesn't know me and is wanting to propose to me? Like, is that really trustworthy? Let's just take your feelings aside for a moment. And if you and I were, let's say we were looking in this, like third party looking in, that doesn't seem very trustworthy behavior in my world, right? Now, that might be the way that I've come to understand trust. But I think a guy earns trust over time through actions and showing up and real time. That's how it gets earned. So what's happening right now is you're having the experience, I feel special. That's great. Enjoy that experience. That's something very different than I trust a guy. That's something very different than I trust myself. And that's certainly something different than he's putting a proposal on the table, right? How does he know you to know that he wants to propose to you, right? So that would definitely, even me as a guy, that would have me in red flagville, right? And if that was a friend of mine or someone in my family or a daughter of mine or whatever, I would be very, very, very cautious in that situation, because that's a sacred thing, and that's gotten thrown out early. And he's also saying he's a womanizer. Like, I'm curious about that. Like, do you want to be with a guy that's a womanizer? That doesn't, I sort of admire the brash honesty at one level, but I'm not sure that that's the guy that's going to be the right fit for you. I was in relationship, says Soaps Inspirations, which turned into a situation. It was hard. We had tuned phone chats and he went, but after 4 months of talking on chat, but when talking, he couldn't, this is so helpful. I closed off for a 4-month relationship. It was not going anywhere. I feel he was just using the simple fact of being ready. Got it. Okay. Sounds like you came to some clarity there. Not a relationship question, but out of interest, what college were you at when you were at Cambridge? I studied at Selwyn College, and I studied social and political sciences with a majoring in politics and psychology. Thanks for asking. Oh, wow. I've hit bottom. I caught you up. I appreciate this. Nicholas says, hey, Jack, I really struggle to take things slow and not jump in when I start a relationship. I put the guy in the center of my world. Don't know how to change that. Any suggestions? Thank you. Yeah, get someone to help you, right? Either professionally, or if you can't afford that or don't want to do that, get a friend who's going to be your sobriety friend. And you're going to check in with them regularly, and they're going to encourage you to slow things down. And you're also going to make sure that you keep active all your other love buckets and commitments, and you fully energize them. right? So you fully energize your friendships. You don't just start to substitute your friendships for this guy. You keep your hobbies and your passions. You practice the 80-20 principle. You keep that attention on yourself so that the more you do that in any connection, whether it's just a friend, hanging out with a coworker, the more you learn to keep over here. Like, you're basically learning how to stay in your own lane. And you won't do it right all the time. Sometimes you'll get way over there, and then eventually you'll realize, you'll be like, oh, yep, need to come back over here to me. Just structurally, don't see him every day, right? That's one way that you take it slow. Don't be a yes to every invitation for connection. Keep some focus on self. But I would get support, because it's going to be much easier for someone else to see this with objectivity than it is for you as well. Joanne says, hey, welcome. All right, guys. So thank you so much all for being here. Again, I want to invite you, if you haven't, come and join in the $1 trial for the Becoming the One program. And I will put the link up here. Hopefully I can get it right this time. So it's Becoming the One /$. So it's just $1 for you to get into this program. It's usually been 500 times as expensive as that just to get access to the program. So this is something that we're offering at this time to help people. And it's a really fantastic program. I'm biased, of course I am, but I'm also sharing, we've had everyone that's been through the graduate survey from this program has said that they would recommend it to another woman. We've had some really life-changing experiences and comments. The first module is called Your Vision for a Conscious Relationship, right? And what we have you do in that module is, rather than your shopping list, right? I want him to be this. I want him to be tall, dark, and handsome. I want him to be attractive. I want him to make money, blah, blah, blah. We change it into a conscious vision for a relationship and a partnership, which includes the light and the dark, right? So if you've never actually got a real vision for a relationship, like, what's going to happen when we get triggered? What's going to happen when I'm angry, or we experience conflict, or we experience a lack of attraction? Like, including the realness of relationship right off the bat with the things that you want, so that you're not creating a castle in the sky, right? Much better that we have that castle grounded in realness and foundation. So that's what we can do for you in the module 1. Module 2 is called Waking Up. And we talk about personas at length. You've heard me talk a little bit about personas here. We help you distinguish what a persona is, where it came from, how to relax it, how to try on new personas, how to make sure that you're not identifying with your persona, right? So if you just think, well, that's who I am, I'm a caregiver, that's who I am. True, but partial. You probably have the caregiving energy, but if that's all you are, you're gonna be showing up as a doormat. You're gonna have men taking you for granted. You're gonna feel like that you get treated badly. You're gonna attract narcissists. You're gonna attract what you don't actually want in a relationship. And we say, rather than rearranging men, it's kind of like rearranging the furniture, we're gonna rearrange the true essence of who you are. We're actually just going to excavate the true essence of who you are and bring that more into relationship. That's why it's one of my favorite modules. We've included that. Originally, when you did the free trial or the $1 trial, you just get access to the first module. And we said, hey, well, you know what? We're going to give access to both modules because these are really powerful. We want to get them into your hands. You're also going to be access to a free live stream that's with me in our private Facebook community. It's happening next Friday, the 19th at 12 p.m. Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern. I'd love to have you there. I get to answer more of your questions because it's a smaller group and we can actually go deeper. And I'll also include some of my teaching there as well. So we'd love to have you with us. Just go to becomingtheone.us/$. You just see there's a short form. You put in a credit card and you'll get instant access to that module. You also get instant access to the 4 pillars of conscious relationship, which if you found that you want to use relationship as path, relationship to wake you up, relationship where you can be more connected to a man, that's a really digestible ebook. You'll like it. So I hope you come and join us in the program. If you haven't, come on, like this video. It helps us get us out. Look, I've been here for 3 hours. I'm losing my voice. I'm going to have to go and gargle something here. But I so appreciate you being with me. I appreciate the questions. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't. If you are a YouTube person and you've known me on YouTube, come over and join us on Facebook. Facebook is actually the place where both YouTube stuff gets posted, but also my Instagram stuff. Obviously, you can follow me on Instagram if you haven't. I'll put that in here, which is instagram.com/realjackbutler. I post stories to Instagram, but they also come through to Facebook. So it's a way to keep in touch of everything that I'm doing. Lauren Love says, can you explain the 80-20 concept? Basically, you keep 80% of the attention on yourself, 20% over there, 80% with me. So I'm more interested in what's happening within me than I am in the conversation. It will feel countercultural. Over time, you'll learn how to do both, and you can kind of move that attention a little bit back and forth more freely. But if you're someone that tends to overgive, overplease, be over there, care too much what people think, take things too personally, This is the antidote, right? It's learning how to be much more over here with me. Abir says, I really appreciate your inspiring speech. Awesome. I'm so glad that it's landing that way in your world. I appreciate that. Mary Kay says, oh, that just moved down on me here. Jack, you're right. There is, in fact, no guy under my couch. I just wanted to check because I'd heard rumors. I will go on exploration for discovering my reason for disengaging from the dating world. Thank you. Love you. I so appreciate that. Here again is that trial. Thank you. The best to you and yours and all who seek a loving connection. Kerry. I need module 1, Jack. Can I just take that to start with? Yeah, come and be part of the, space is going to cost you $1, right? Be part of the trial, and then you get to decide at the 14-day mark if you want to continue or you can discontinue. That's up to you. So yeah, come in there. You'll get access to it immediately. When to bring up the talk about his salary? I don't know. Why do you need to know that? I'm curious. What's that about? I think you can normally tell a guy's relationship with money, his values, how much he's paying attention, just that it gets revealed in conversation. I don't know if you need to specifically ask that. I'm curious, or I'm curious if that needs to be high in your list of questions. Maybe that's authentic for you, but that kind of has some curiosity for me. Rose Lawrence says, thanks. If you want to join me on Instagram, here it is, instagram.com/realjackbutler. I'd love it if you haven't joined me on Facebook. Come over there and do it. We're just trying to tip it over the 5,000 likes. Maybe you can help me do that. Maya's just joined from Indonesia. Welcome. Jack, the guy checklist isn't working. Interesting. Okay, let me just see if I can load that here to check that I'm giving you the correct link. Part of doing live streams is learning learning links in your head, right? That's just loading up here. Okay, I think you're right. So what I'm going to do is once this video is posted, I will just post under this video what that is. And if you want to get there before me, you can go to most of my previously released videos and you'll see that there is a link to the checklist that should be working there. Good feedback on it, so I encourage you to get it. Thank you so much. Take care. You're a sane and trustworthy teacher. Authenticity shines through, Jack. Thank you for the honest way you show up. Do you do private sessions? So yes and no. So yes, I do. And at the moment, I'm restricting private sessions to people that come and join me in the program that's just my program, which is called the Real Relationship Program. And the best way to get access to that is to go take my free webinar and join the waitlist. And I'm just putting that link here now. And maybe I can flash that up across the screen as well. It's called Say Hello to Mr. Right, bit.ly/Say Hello to Mr. Right. And you'll basically get invited there. You can click a button and it will have you join my waitlist. So when I reopen enrollment, then you'll be able to get access to private coaching with me. That's what I'm doing at the moment. Debbie says, Jack, these live videos are so moving. I'm hooked. I'll definitely check out the trial of becoming the one. Awesome. Let me know how you go. I appreciate you stepping in. Joanne, can you review the 2 modules in the promo again, please? Okay, so the first module of the program is called Vision for a Conscious Relationship. We basically have you write a vision and you can send it to me. And that vision is what I would call a real vision of relationship, right? So it's not just the sort of knight in shining armor version, right? It's not just, oh, we'll have fun and we'll be playful and creative. Absolutely, we include that. But also I think this is where we perhaps add more value, is we also include some of the difficult stuff. Like what do you want to have happen when you feel triggered? What sort of communication do you guys want to have? What are you going to do about attachment? If you know you're anxious attachment, that's not just going to heal itself unconsciously. That's going to need some conscious attention in the relationship. So we invite you to include some of those things in putting together a vision. We also talk about how to handle your inner critic, right? That's the very first video that I put out in this incarnation on YouTube. So when I started my channel last March, I put out a video. If there's one thing you could change your life, it's this. and it was a video about the inner critic. That's how important I think the inner critic is. It tends to run us in the background. So we start right up front with that. We have a whole teaching about how to relax your inner critic, how to understand that as a structure, where it came from. Then module 2 is called Waking Up, and we talk about personas. We also talk about, so personas are things like the strong one, the independent one, the needy one, the innocent one. Someone earlier was talking about being sweet and innocent. That could be a persona. It's kind of a mask I wear to the world, but it's not actually the truth of what's happening in my underlying experience, and it limits me. Like I can only behave like this rather than I've got this bigger range. So we talk about personas, what they are, again, how they came about, how to relax them, how you needed them to survive childhood, how we can now let that go. And then we also talk about something called Neo-Reichian rights. Right? So these are rights to things like your own autonomy and your own expression. And most of us have one or more of these rights. We got them impaired, or they were violated in childhood. And so we've never learned how to fully honor them. Like you don't have a right to differentiate and to have your own experience, right? So you always kind of collude and codepend on other people's experience. Or maybe you don't have a right to your own autonomy. So whenever you're with a guy and he shows a little bit of autonomy and takes some space, you completely freak out. So we're kind of making some repairs here to some of your deeper structures, but module 2 is all about awareness. The whole program is all about awareness, right? If you're into relationships and you want to be more aware, this is probably the place to come play with us. And you know, it's $1. Come and test it out. If you like it, stay. If you don't, no obligations. You'll also get access to at least 2 bonuses. One bonus is called the it's an ebook that I co-wrote with Clayton Olson, who's my teaching partner in this program. It's called The 4 Pillars of Conscious Relationship. So things that you can practice both in dating and in relationship if you get into relationship. Some people, back in the day, I've had people write to me and say that was a loan worth the investment, right? And this was like a $500 investment. So it's good. You should check it out. And you'll also get access to an interview that I shot with an emotional intelligence expert. It's called the Emotional Intelligence 101 interview. It's got some really great stuff about giving and receiving. It's got some great stuff about listening and talking, how to basically balance out your emotional intelligence so that you have a more balanced relationship, right? So you don't get into a relationship where you either all listen or all talk, or you learn how to receive. What are your barriers to receiving, and how to be more emotionally aware? So it's a really great thing. Again, you can just get to experience that, and you'll be part of our exclusive live stream in the Facebook community, and this will be happening next Friday. We do them every 2 weeks. So the next one is with me, Friday, June 19th at 12 noon Mountain. So 12 noon Pacific, 1 p.m. Mountain. So even if you just want to join for that, you're welcome. Come along, be in the program. It's going to cost you $1. Just click that link. I'll pop it up here again so that we're all on the same page. But thank you for the question. Let me know if there's anything else that comes from that. Amazing video. How can I heal anxious attachment? That's a big question. Consciously is the answer, right? So you work on it with someone like a coach or a therapist. You also find someone that wants to work on it with you in relationship. If you come and join us in Becoming the One, module 4 is called Real Compatibility. And real compatibility, one of the things that we distinguish is attachment patterns and styles, because there are certain attachment styles that it's really difficult. Like if you're on the anxious side and you're with someone that's more avoidant, that's just going to be a harder healing path. So how can you recognize someone that has a more of a secure attachment style? How can you start to own more of your own secure attachment with yourself and with life? Because attachment is not just to another person. Most of us have a dominant attachment experience to life. Is life safe? Is life trustworthy? Does life have our back? So, I mean, there's a lot that goes into that, but we dimensionalize that in module 4 of the program. Persona info is so interesting. Wow, your words gave me confidence, Jack. Thank you. You're welcome. I'm happy to hear that. Candy, it's asking for login. Yes, I'm sorry about that. It's because I've given you a link that clearly isn't working right now for some reason, and so it's just taking you to the kind of the raw Becoming the One page. So I will. You know what? I'm here. You're still here. If you bear with me, I will go and just actually grab this link. This is for the Who's Your Guy checklist. So for those of you that haven't taken my checklist, this is a free checklist. You can just download it. It's super simple. It's 9 points that I put together. It's basically 9 things that you can take any guy in your life and you can run him through, and it will tell you, is this guy someone that is showing up for you, right? Is he kind of in the game enough with you? I can't tell you whether a relationship can go long term, but what I'm really using is as a filter tool to filter out guys that aren't meeting the showing up standard, right? Hot and cold guy doesn't meet the showing up standard. So the sooner we realize that, the sooner we get the opportunity to choose something else. So, all right, I'm posting a new link here to the He's Your Guy's checklist, and I'm going to flash this one up on the screen as well. Putting it up currently for those of you on Facebook. but I've put it into the chat. It's a slightly more complex one to copy because this is the underlying link. So take it if you can. Take it from the chat. I've just finished all the modules from that program yesterday. Extraordinary. You must all join that. Thank you, Jack. Hey, I appreciate that. Thank you for sharing that. I'm glad you had such a good experience of it. Are you wearing eyeliner? No, I'm not wearing eyeliner. I have worn it once in my life, I think, at a party where my partner decided to spontaneously dress me up. I'm not sure I looked great with it. Thanks for the questions and the great insights. Awesome. All these videos are helpful, and this one hits home for me because I ended it with a 4-month relationship, but I deserve better. He seemed like a narcissist. Got it. Yeah, let's get you, Mr. Right. Thank you. Very insightful. I'm a big YouTube fan. Denise says thank you as well. Ali says, Jack, do you advice or book reference for the frustration complex, please? I don't know the specific book. So frustration object relation, which is what I talk about, comes from object relations theory. The sort of creator of that is a guy called Winnicott, who's a British psychologist writing, I think, in the 60s. I think the main book was in 1965, something like that. So you can go, there's a Wikipedia entry for object relations theory. That's somewhere that you could start. Jack, I tend to attract guys who make less money than me and they can't afford to travel much. What to do? Give 75% of your salary away. Well, I mean, congrats. That might be because you're doing great financially. You just want to honor that. That's really awesome if that's true. Yeah, I know this can also be a thing a little bit like later in life if people are thinking about retiring, right? Or maybe you're going part-time or you're already retired or semi-retired and you kind of want to travel more and you need to have the resources to do that. I would just imagine that the right guy for you is probably going to have some resources. I don't want to just discount guys that don't, but it sounds like that's important to you, right? You want to have that ability to travel. And we all know that travel takes money, you know? So one way to look at this is to look at what I call in the Enneagram world, we call it self-preservation energy or self-preservation instinct. That is one predictor of how much a guy pays attention to his resources, right? And in our society in this time, money really is that resource. Now, that doesn't mean he's necessarily, because you're self-pres dominant, that you make more money. It's just you probably pay more attention to that aspect of life, right? Like, how often do you check your bank balance, right? Some people don't check their bank balance even once a month. Some people check their bank balance every day. Some people always know how much they've got money in their checking, how much they've got in their savings, right? It's just a self-preservation dominant instinct guy is going to be paying a bit more attention probably to that vector of reality. So that might be something, is just learning how to read that energy in people, learning also how to bring that into the conversation. You know, and maybe there's a right guy for you. Maybe he does make less money for you, but he's actually resourceful, right? So sometimes it's not just resources, it's resourcefulness. There are some ways that you can travel and spend less money, right? Or maybe there are ways that he's actually got work that he can make money on the move, right? And that's the way that you travel together, is he's got some skill that he can do online, or he can, I don't know, give people massages or whatever it is. So yeah, I mean, the other thing you can do is just look at polarity. Like, notice, are you bringing your feminine? If your feminine is your essence, or just however feminine you are bringing that into the connection? Because that might mean the more you are, the more likely you're to attract a guy who's in his masculine, and guys who are in their masculine probably find it a little bit easier to make money than guys that are not in their masculine, particularly if their essence is masculine, but they're not actually honoring what their essence is. So those would be my my lines of inquiry. Jack, you helped a lot to get over my hardest stage. A drop-off guy. I graduated. He showed his verbally abusive behavior in our last date. Thanks. Got it. Awesome. Well done for taking a stand for yourself. Leanne, welcome. She says, becoming the one has helped me remove all my anxieties around dating relationship. I highly recommend it to grow in all areas of life. I super appreciate that. Thank you for being part of it with us. I'm so glad you've had that that experience of us. Joanne enrolled. Awesome. Thank you. Great video. Ali says, great. Thank you, Jack. I heard you mention one time that in your family, some of you are 15 years apart. Is this with women are 15 years older than the man? How is it working for them? So actually, in both of these instances, it's the guy that's older. And in both of these instances, it seems to work really well. So yeah, it's great. You know, I don't want to share too much of people's personal lives. It's not sort of mine to share. But yeah, they work really well. And I super appreciate spending time with both of these couples. So yeah, that's my experience. How can I get over fear of abandonment in relationships? Wow, that's a big one. I've got to wrap up here, so I'm not going to answer that at length. I'm just going to say, first, learn how to not abandon yourself. Start at home. So the more that you can befriend yourself, be a good friend to yourself, stay with yourself in difficult experiences, the more, what we don't want is that you feel abandoned by someone and you also abandon yourself, right? That you're not really there to be present, to tend to yourself, to take care of yourself, to take care of your little one. So start at home. Nicola says, loving your Enneagram points. Are there any Enneagram tools or books you recommend? Yes. So if you want, a powerful, if you want a powerful way to get into the Enneagram that's kind of pithy, I would say take my course. I have an Enneagram masterclass, right? It is a paid program, but it's, 1.5 plus hours of video that just kind of it distills it. And I kind of wish, I spent thousands of dollars in my Enneagram education. I kind of wish that I'd started with something a bit like that. If you don't want to have a video course and you want a book, I recommend Helen Palmer's book. It's called The Enneagram in Love and Work. It's one of the things that got me into the Enneagram. It's just super digestible and it's real and it gives practical examples that will help you probably locate yourself on the spectrum. So they're the two places I go to. I don't have a public URL that sells my Enneagram Masterclass. If you're interested in it, just send me a message. Send me a direct message through Instagram or send me a message through the contact form on my website, and I will let you know how you can get enrollment in my Enneagram Masterclass. Myla, I grew up in the Philippines. Most of my family there found their first spouse at a young age, married within a few months and together until death did them part. Here in the USA, why is it hard for me to do that? Well, one reason is potentially because there is a stage of worldview that we call, the traditional worldview, right? And in the traditional worldview, which is, let's say, how my great-grandparents grew up, boy meets girl, girl meets boy, and they kind of settle down pretty quickly. And that's kind of what the culture supports. And it's what most people were doing, right? Most people are not doing that now in the US, partly because it's a modernist culture and a postmodernist culture. It is also a traditional culture. So I'm not saying that that's not there. It is there, right? And there are in some communities. I mean, someone asked me about studying at Cambridge. I had a lot of friends at Cambridge that were evangelical Christians, and most of them settled down in their 20s. Some in their early 20s, got married, had families, and that's what they're doing. And probably it will be till death do them part. But that is a certain worldview. It's a certain way of being in reality. Most people aren't in that way of being in reality, right? Sometimes in that reality, there are things that are good, right? There's the stability, there's the tradition, there's the holding of the family, we have different roles, we know what we're doing. A lot of this style of work is actually, how can I break free of some of those unconscious roles, right? So it's not just the guy is perhaps the protector and provider, and I'm the nurturer and the caregiver. We're actually going to open that script up. There's opportunities in opening that script up, and there's also some things that become harder. So the thing that you're pointing to probably becomes a little bit harder. But if you really want that, I would find a guy that has a traditional worldview and still probably lives somewhat in a traditional culture or subculture, and then you can probably make that happen. Most of the guys that you're going to meet on dating websites and apps probably aren't necessarily in that reality. So it still exists. You just got to work out, is that what you really want? Sometimes people want that, but then they also want all the opportunities that come from a modernist or postmodernist culture, right? Where perhaps women's rights have really come to the forefront in a way that I think is amazing, or perhaps I can get to focus on my career in different ways, or perhaps we don't have the pressure to settle down, or perhaps, I can get married multiple times, right? Or I can have different types of love relationships, right? And that's actually more real and meaningful to me, perhaps. So I'm not saying better or worse. I'm just saying different. And I'm saying what you want is what is aligned, is what is true with you. But trying to create this with a guy that doesn't have a traditional worldview, very difficult. That's like a non-starter. So you need to kind of find someone that has that worldview, and you need to honestly acknowledge, do I have that worldview? Because sometimes in that worldview, there are also things that to this sort of modernist and postmodernist sensibility, we think are a little bit traditional, right? Or maybe even less progressive, right? So maybe the role of a woman in a household, right? Maybe the guy is the head of the household. Maybe you want that, maybe you don't, right? So it's I'm giving you one level of analysis, right? There's a complex picture, but that's one way to look at this, is that the traditional worldview is not the only worldview that's present in the world right now. And in the postmodernist worldview, wow, we just want to deconstruct stuff, right? So we want to say, and there's, again, gifts and opportunities and liabilities to that, right? The nuclear family became under attack, right? And for better or for worse, right? I'm not even passing comment on that. I'm just saying people don't just take it as an a priori good that there's such a thing as a nuclear family, right? And now in the postmodern world, we get all these different flavors of relationship, right? We allow all sorts of relationships that weren't allowed historically. I happen to think that's a good thing, right? But some people in a more traditional worldview, they don't want that, right? So it's sort of finding your flavor of it. But I'm curious if that's making sense. All right, that's it. I'm going to call time. Thanks so much for being here. I appreciate it. Some of you came early, stayed. Some of you have just dropped in. For the last time, I'm going to put this up here. If you haven't, obviously this is important to do. Come on, join us in the program. It's just $1. You know, I've regularly spent over $1,000 to fly places in the world that I want to be in. Obviously, we're in a slightly different time now. So this is a great time also to be doing online education, right? You can, and this is, you know, there's videos, there's MP3s, there's transcripts. So whatever your learning style is, whether you read, write, whether you're auditory, whether you're someone who prefers to look at things visually. You can also ask us questions in the Facebook community. You can come and be live. I'd love to be live with you next Friday if you want to join us. So just click that link. Come on and enroll in the program, and I'll look forward to seeing you there. Thanks to all of you that have joined the program already. Super appreciate it. And thank you all for your questions and your comments. It's been really enlivening. I've loved this session. Hit like if you haven't. Share this video. Surely there's someone that this could also provide some value in their life. I would love it if you'd do that, and I'd love it if you'll join me again sometime soon. So if you subscribe to the channel, you will hear of the next time that I'm going live. If you're a YouTube person, come over and join us on Facebook, facebook.com/Real Jack Butler. If you're a Facebook person, come on, subscribe. Come over to YouTube. I release a lot of stuff on YouTube, so come and be part of both communities. And I'll love you and leave you, and I look forward to seeing you soon. Thanks so much for being here. I'm Jack.